Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call our meeting back to order with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
And our city attorney, Walter Chung, will bring us out of closed session.
The City Council took no reportable action in closed session tonight.
And this evening, Councilmember Melendez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and put your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our city clerk has a statement to read.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you're ready to leave, you may ask one of the staff in the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To speak on an item on the agenda this evening, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you would like to speak on and give it to our clerk secretary staff here on the dais. Speaker slips are available on the table just outside of the council chambers. Speakers will each have 3 minutes to address the city council. And now we'll go to our city manager, John Conley, for approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. We have one presentation this evening. Todd Huffman of Pipeline Digital Media will provide a presentation on the Carlsbad Raceway Monument Project. Welcome.
Thank you, Council and Mayor and staff. My name is Todd Huffman. I'm with Pipeline Digital Media. That's my real job, but my volunteer job right now is pitching and creating the Carlsbad Raceway Monument. It's going to go pretty fast, so I'll try to get through this stuff. So there have been iconic places of sport in our world, the United States, stick and ball, motorsports. There's a few on the screen. But you guys have your own special place, which is your neighbor, which was the Carlsbad Raceway. It was established in 1964 as a drag strip and home to some famous drag racers like Big Daddy Don Garlitz, Vista's own Don Perdome, and of course there you see Evel Knievel with Larry Grismer, the owner of the track, and his 2 sons. Evel did shows there. But it was the sport of motocross that put the raceway and actually the city of Carlsbad on the map with the USGP that was on the Wide World of Sports every year from 1973 to 1986. There on the lower right, that's Marty Moats. He was the first American winner in 1980, a local boy from San Diego. And there, number 25 is the last winner. Local boy from El Cajon, Ricky Johnson. When the race was on the Wide World of Sports, it was one of their highest rated shows. And when the race came to town, if you can imagine, 50,000 people in that little valley off of Melrose and Palomar Airport Road. There were other events. The raceway was home to the Carlsbad Skate Park, which was one of the first in the United States in 1976. It had other motorsports events, like another made-for-TV event for the Wide World of Sports called Superbikers, which actually was produced by the current CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. But why are we talking about the Carlsbad Raceway here at the city of Vista? Because the monument is actually in the city of Vista. This is the proposed location on the northeast corner overlooking the raceway off of Keystone Avenue in the Keystone Innovation Industrial Park. That is the city of Vista. So what is it? It's a 1,300 square foot immersive interpretive display with plaques that tell everybody what went on at the raceway for 40 years. It's got benches for people to sit and tell each other how great they were. It's got a little scale sculpture of the motocross track for kids to play with toys. It's pretty cool, and it's got bricks that we're selling to individuals for their engraved names of their loved ones and memorials, and they're surrounded by other legends. And it's on this great, what we call the overlook deck that juts out over the canyon. The location is ideal. To get to the monument, you have to go through the city of Vista from the north, off of Highway 78 in Sycamore, from the east, off of Highway 78 in Sycamore. There's 2 breweries in the parking lot. It's going to be a great worldwide destination for motorsports fans and weekend group rides on motorcycles and cars, car groups, car clubs, etc. How we got here was I produced a movie about Marty Moats winning in 1980. I gave some to Kathy for the staff to distribute, which will give you a little more history on the raceway. And we started looking for sites, and we went round and round with the city of Carlsbad and property developers and property owners associations. And finally, we're about ready to give up. And in 2020, we said, let's go look on the Vista side of the raceway. And we found the Beatty development over there, and Ben Beatty, God bless him, he said yes in about 30 minutes to put in the monument there, because we just didn't have any luck getting the dirt for it. So we spent lots of money with Schmidt Design from San Diego to design the different sites, but now we're happy with it being in Vista. It actually was a blessing in disguise. The benefits for Vista are a lot. Obviously, you guys get a worldwide, world-known destination, attraction, right here in the city of Vista. Obviously, most people come from the north. Economic benefits from gas, hotel stays, restaurants, groceries, etc., from the visitors. A cost-effective attraction that was developed by volunteers and paid partially by volunteers, kind of dumped in your lap, you know? So it's kind of like getting the Peterson Auto Museum from LA dropped right in on top of you guys. Since we started in 2012, we raised over $100,000 from t-shirts and donations. We've worked with Schmidt Design here in San Diego. We have architectural construction quotes. In-kind services have been expressed by TFW Construction here in San Diego. The San Diego Habitat Conservancy has expressed interest in being part of it as well, to talk about what's going on in the raceway since the motorcycles and dragsters disappeared. And we kind of hope to have a grand opening on June 23rd, which is the 50th anniversary of the first USGP on Wide World of Sports. We hope we can make it. Obviously, we're looking for some help from the city of Vista, a minimum of $50,000 or more, whatever they can think is worth it. And of course, challenge or shame other cities to do the same, because it's going to benefit everybody in the region. And of course, any help with permit fees, minimizing them, fast tracking stuff to get it done, kind of be our partner in the project. And of course, maybe some possible ongoing maintenance support for landscaping, etc. About us, the Road to Recovery, which owns the project, is a 501c3 nonprofit in good standing in Poway. They were formerly in Encinitas. They help injured motocross and extreme sports athletes, all those guys and riders and gals that risk their lives to entertain a lot of what I see the people in the audience like to see. That's what Road to Recovery does, and they've been doing it for over 20 years. So this project will be an awareness project for them and also help them raise additional funds. That's it. It's going to be a great project we think, for the city of Vista and the whole region. We're also applying for some of the county grants that all the county supervisors each have. I think that's the Neighborhood Reinvestment Act and the Community Enhancement Act. So we're applying for those grants as well. So it's kind of a all hands on deck to pull this off. And it's a very green project, so the only noise or torn up dirt or exhaust from burning rubber will be in the memories of the people that visit, while Mother Nature reclaims the ground that once was. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Huffman, for that presentation. Deputy Mayor Contreras?
Yes, I have a question. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful memorial monument. However, is this at all going to be public in perpetuity, or is this going to be private?
It's for the public.
So is it public land?
It's private land, but it's in the parking lot of those two breweries. So the public can come anytime on the weekend, all night, all day. The business park is open 24/7. And we encourage everybody to come whenever they can go, so.
Okay. So, but it won't be granted to the public. It's still going to remain under private ownership.
A nonprofit owns it.
Right. Which is, that's a corporation that doesn't make, money.
Correct.
But so it's still, so the answer to my question is yes, right? It will remain private and not public, the land.
For now, it remains private. Honestly, our goal is that a municipality at some point says, hey, we will take this thing over, but obviously the land is attached to the Beatty development there,
Okay.
Ben Beatty. So it's a little piece of his landscaping that we're kind of making lemonade out to put the monument in.
Yeah, that's great for the owner of that property, and if there's access to the public, that's great. But I'm just curious if it was ever actually going to become the public's property. or not. But I'll take the
anything's
answer
possible.
as right. I'll take the answer as right now is it's no. It's going
Yeah.
to continue to be private.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Green?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you for this presentation as well.
you.
I'm familiar with the Carlsbad Raceway. Actually, my brother used to skateboard there back in the
there you
day
go.
on a longboard, so it is definitely a good thing. I love it being a green project, especially with St. Patrick's Day coming up and my last name being Green, so it's one of my favorite. But I definitely like you bringing forward. I think what Deputy Mayor Contreras said is, a very viable point, is that improving private property isn't something we typically do. I don't know that we ever do, but I appreciate the presentation, and I definitely know a lot of people in the area that love this type of program and love the fact you're doing something with the Carlsbad Raceway. So even if it's going to be on a private property, I know you said that a nonprofit owned it. Did the Beatty Group actually grant an easement or a portion of the property to your nonprofit?
No, they basically gave us I think it's a 20-year lease for like $1.
Okay, so they did section off a property.
Oh,
of
yeah,
a
for sure.
portion of
We
the
have an
property.
agreement with the Beatty Development,
Okay.
Signed lease agreement. We can't even put a shovel in the ground over there until we have all the money complete, because they don't want it to be one of these half-baked projects. We all go down and dig on the weekend, right? I'm from Orange County, so,
got you.
It's a ways for me to come to
I got you.
do it part-time. So we want to go in there and knock it out and get it done and let people enjoy it.
Fantastic. Yeah, sounds like
been a long
so far
time.
we got a 20-year locked-in public benefit, and maybe that might need to change for it to work. But I'm happy to work with you and have other people in the community work with you to make it happen. So
Yeah, if you
hope
have
a
questions,
great
reach
day.
out to me independently, so with
Definitely will.
ideas.
Thanks for coming to present tonight. I really appreciate it.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
Awesome presentation. Have you gone to Carlsbad yet?
Yeah, we did, and we talked to the economic development people down there in the community people, and they love it. They love the project. At the time, their hands were tied because geographically, it's not in the city of Carlsbad. It's a whole 10 feet away. is where the property line is from it. And they're the ones who directed us to these Board of Supervisor grants that each supervisor has. There's 2 grants in each district, and we're applying for 2 grants in 3 districts because the project's in District 5, Carlsbad is in District 3, and that Road Recovery Foundation is in District 2. So we're going to apply for grants in all the districts, and we kind of hope that we can get, you know, a third from private and companies, you know, individuals, a third from municipalities, and the other third from the county. So, and the city of Carlsbad told us, hey, if you get the county involved, then they'll pull us in. So county sounded like we had to go through District 3 first, so, and we're doing that.
Perfect. Well, keep it up. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much.
We have 3 public hearings this evening, and this will bring us to the first of those. Public hearing number 1 is regarding levying the Central Vista Business Improvement District annual levy. The public hearing is now open, and our Economic Development Director, Larry Vappel, will the consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, that'll bring us to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent agenda will be enacted in one motion unless an agenda item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk's secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We have 7 consent items this evening. I see Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, I just want to move to accept the consent calendar, and I do want to say that I really appreciate the community coming together and utilizing these different petitions. We have 2 new stop signs that are going to be, well, actually more than that, but 2 all-way stops that are going to be implemented. And I think it's fantastic. If you have any questions about how to go through this petition, please let us know. Our door is always open, at least mine is, for communicating about how to improve circulation and mobility while protecting pedestrians and cyclists and even drivers. So just wanted to give that shout out to let everybody here know, because it looks like we might have some new faces. Please, 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 if you want to do a petition, get started with it and let us know how we can help. Yep, so I'll go ahead and move the consent calendar.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Contreras, for that. Yeah, if things don't meet the traffic engineering guidelines in your municipality, there is a way around that, because nobody knows public safety like you do on your roads with your kids on your streets and sidewalks or lack thereof. So please fill out those petitions and get those done. With that, I will second the motion made by Deputy Mayor.
Okay, seeing no other requests to speak, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item passes unanimously, and that will bring us to our public hearings now. And as I said, we have 3 this evening. The first is levying the Central Business Improvement District annual levy. The public hearing is now open. Economic Development Director Larry Vappel will introduce the item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight for the public hearing for the Central Vista Business Improvement District. This levies an assessment on all the businesses located within the boundary of the district. It ranges from $300 to $750 per business based upon the number of employees. And that number, or that revenue that's received from that goes to promote the work plan of the improvement district, which includes promotion of business activities, promotion of public events, decoration of public places, furnishing music for public places and events, acquisition, construction, installation, and maintenance of improvements, and other operating activities. In 2022, $12,000 was awarded to produce special events in the bid area. This assessment that's being requested is the same as last year. And for this year, we are actually negotiating contracts with 2 special event organizers for 5 to 6 bigger and better events for this summer and fall. So at this time, we could take public comment.
Thank you very much. And we do have a couple of council members that would like to speak. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, Councilmember Joe Green.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Larry, for that presentation. The Central Vista Business Improvement District tax that we're levying is basically just a recurring tax. It's not a new tax on business owners, and these funds are applied towards great events downtown. Larry, I know you said that you have bids from 2 different event planners and that we're trying to have some bigger, better events down there. I do try to attend the bid meetings regularly because I love the Central Vista Business District down there. And we had previously spoken about a festival, the Ox Festival Outdoor Experience. And if anybody in Vista is watching the Outdoor Experience Festival, something I know the bid was fired up about. But what type of events are you talking about? When will we know who gets approved for it, and when do we get to market them to our community? Because I mean, these events are trying to get people into downtown to, basically spend money at our businesses downtown and also make Vista shine. So what are we looking at?
Yeah, that's correct. So we had Discover Vista submit a bid to run 4 events this year, including their annual Rod Run, the big car show, but also a monthly market and some stuff around Halloween and also Christmas. And then we also had a respondent called The Perfect Event. You may have heard the Catalina wine mixer that draws about 4,000 people a year. They operate that event.
Okay.
So we're looking to bring them in, potentially parlay some of the bid activities with the city's 60th anniversary.
Okay.
And have a real big party for our community in the downtown.
That is what I like to hear. And that's something that as a city, I know we pride ourselves in working with our businesses, but also making sure that our businesses give back to the community and provide great events for the community. So this Central Vista Business Improvement District, we have a commission, we have a tax, and we really make sure that we allocate it to make Vista shine. And I know Vistans who've lived in Vista their whole life, when you walk downtown, it doesn't look like it used to look. And there's businesses down there that we can go out to and have a great time on the weekend. I no longer have to go out to Carlsbad to go to a place to go out and have dinner or have drinks because Vista is happening. So I appreciate the work the Economic Development Department is doing. With that, I would move to close the public hearing and accept staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you. You know what? I have a few questions. Yeah. So my first question, and it might be my only question, are we looking to expand the Central Vista Business Improvement District at any point as we kind of grow our activities downtown?
That's always a possibility. At this point, so we have a bid advisory board, and they recommended keeping the boundaries the same. But that is something that as we see the growth, extend down maybe North Santa Fe, that's something we could look to expand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what, it really, there's a lot of potential on North Santa Fe, right? We have this little spot right here that goes down on this part, and perhaps North Santa Fe, we can, as a council, start looking at a natural continuance of this improvement in North Santa Fe, where it's really driven by the community. So that way it's, community creating their vision instead of development creating their vision that sometimes doesn't really marry very well with the community's vision. But yeah, and I wanted to bring it up too because it's a little bit confusing where the Vista Transit Center is. It looks like part of the transit center is located in Area B, and North County Transit District does have plans to improve some of their parking lots. And so the parking lot that's on the corner of Vista Village and North Santa Fe, that parking lot is on their list of improvements. So if there is a commercial improvement that happens there, perhaps that's a natural progression to include that in this business improvement district. But other than that, I will go ahead and second the motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. Oh, I have one question. Sorry. I do support this item, but I was curious. I see it says that assessment amounts for each business is informed by 3 factors: number of employees, type of business, and the business location within the district. Could you explain a little further about how the type of business impacts their assessment amount?
Sure. So on attachment 1, there's a table that explains, basically you break down the different business classifications. You have retail and restaurant, that's one classification. And then there's service, professional, and financial institution. So those are the 4 different classifications. And then you can see across the top you have zone A, B, and C. The board also wants to be more deliberate about having events along South Santa Fe now that the improvements are done. And so that's one of their goals this year too, is to really make sure that not just happening in the historic downtown area, but also along South Santa Fe.
Okay, thank you for that. If I could just get clarification with the chart, does this describe how one business will have a greater assessment than another? So, for example, it looks like perhaps a service business will have a smaller assessment than a financial institution.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Councilmember Green.
Real quick, I just see a lady by the name of Lisa Deju in the back of the council chambers here in a beautiful black coat. Miss Lisa Deju is the chairperson of the Central Vista Business Improvement District and is a resident who just serves on the committee voluntarily. She also owns Guadalupe Brewery and Tap House, which is in our bid district. And if you haven't visited the pretty Guadalupe Brewery Tap House, check it out. Thank you, Lisa, for being here tonight, and thank you for your work on the bid.
Okay, I don't believe we have any public speakers on this item. Seeing no other requests to speak, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and that item is approved unanimously, which brings us to our next item, public hearing number 2. Public hearing regarding amendments to the Vista Municipal Code, Chapter 3.56, regarding tobacco retail licenses. The public hearing is now open. Our city clerk, Kathy Valdez, will introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. As indicated, this item is to introduce proposed amendments to Vista Municipal Code 3.56 regarding tobacco retail licenses. In 2005, the City Council adopted an ordinance to adopt a tobacco retail license and was last amended in 2016. On February 28th, the council directed staff to modify the penalty schedule, and that is what we're bringing forward today. We also took the opportunity to look at some other potential changes as well. So the proposed changes are legislative findings updates, fine for retailers found to be in violation, strengthening language for penalties to reduce the number of violations prior to license revocation, and amending Vista Development Code 18.58475. The legislative findings section 3.56 has been updated to include language regarding the ban of flavored tobacco sales in California and to update language regarding the state's prohibition on tobacco product sales through self-service displays or vending machines. Staff recommends strengthening the language in the code to state that a license shall be suspended for the respective amount of time rather than up to a specific amount of time. While both the clerk and the retailer are subject to fines under Penal Code 3.08, the practice has been to cite the clerk and only implement the other penalties on the business. This is due largely to the fact that the owner is typically not available when the decoy operations are conducted and for the sheriffs to cite. Based on direction from the City Council, staff recommends including a $750 fine at the first offense to be paid by the retailer, as well as accelerating suspension and revocation timelines. The city cannot institute both a fine and a suspension or revocation for a specific violation. Staff recommends starting with the financial penalty and then escalating to a suspension or revocation. The new changes will also allow for a stricter suspension schedule and recommendation for license revocation at the 4th violation rather than the 5th violation. The chart before you reflects the current penalty structure as well as the new proposed structure. Lastly, Vista Development Code Section 18.58.475 currently requires any new tobacco store to be more than 1,000 feet from a school. Staff's recommending amending this code and asking the Planning Commission to review it to include that a store must also be within more than 1,000 feet of an existing tobacco store or cannabis retailer. So it would go to the Planning Commission, and then based on their decision or approval, be back to City Council for approval. Should be noted that these businesses are tobacco-only stores. They're not your convenience stores, gas stations, things like that, that only sell tobacco on an ancillary basis. That completes, that is also consistent with the distancing policies of the County of San Diego and other cities which include this type of restriction. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer questions.
Thank you. And we do have a number of public speakers. Any comments before we hear from the public speakers? We'll begin, and if you would come forward and be prepared to make remarks after the speaker in front of you. We begin with Socorro Ramirez, followed by Estela Chomu, followed by Rhiannon Reiki. Is Socorro Ramirez with us?
Excuse me, do we have an interpreter?
No, we did not receive any requests for interpreter.
Would you like an interpreter?
Yes.
Is
If we don't, then I can do
Huerta?
my best. Gracias.
Buenas tardes, Concilio. Estamos aquí, como saben, abogando, ¿verdad?, para que los dueños de tiendas de tabaco pues tengan algunas multas para poder que nuestros jóvenes ya no lo consuman tanto. Como líderes comunitarios nos preocupa que nuestra ciudad de Vista esté libre de todas esas drogas como es el tabaco, el vapeo y...
Un momento.
Gracias. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. ¿Su nombre otra vez?
Socorro Ramírez.
Socorro Ramirez is here to say that, to talk on this item regarding tobacco retail licenses and is against the tobacco for youths and any types of drugs or the type of related substances in our retails. So,
Sí, esperemos tener una buena noticia ahora. Gracias por escuchar nuestra petición y esperemos que nos apoyen en esto para que nuestra comunidad esté libre de eso para nuestros jóvenes que que tenemos ahora, hoy en día.
So she's very happy that this item is being heard today. She's hoping that they hear good news, and they're happy that you're listening to their petition today. ¿Estás feliz por escuchar su petición hoy y otra cosa?
Pues que esperemos que hoy tengamos buenas respuestas.
Sí. Okay, they're looking forward for good news today, and hopefully it works in their favor.
Eso es todo. Muchas gracias.
And that's all. Thank you. I can hang out for a bit.
Thank you very much. Estela Chomu? Chamu? Gracias.
¿Cómo es tu nombre?
Estela Chamú. Okay. Buenas tardes, gracias por su tiempo y por escucharnos a la comunidad de Vista.
So good afternoon. This is Estela Chamu, ¿verdad? And she's very happy that you're here to listen to the community today.
Somos un pequeño grupo de voluntarias y hemos visitado las tiendas de alrededor de Vista.
So they are a group of volunteers and they have visited many stores around here in Vista.
Y es muy triste ver que nuestros hijos, hay escuelas donde hay licorerías. ¿sí?
Okay, so it's very sad to see that their children, there's a lot of stores around here, and the children go there to visit, and there's a lot of alcohol and other substances in these stores.
Y lo primero que ven nuestros hijos son el cigarro, ¿sí?
And the first thing that our kids see are cigarettes.
Y ahorita, hoy en tiempo, como voluntarias, nos damos cuenta que desde chiquitos ya tienen asma.
And so what they're seeing now is that a lot of young children or young youths are having asthma because of these substances.
Entonces, ustedes como representantes deben de cuidar más a nuestra comunidad, su
So
salud.
you as representatives should take care more of our health and in the community.
Y les damos gracias por su tiempo y por su apoyo. Y no dejen de tomar en cuenta todas nuestras peticiones. Gracias.
So they appreciate your time and for you to listen, and they hope that you take their request in consideration.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Rhiannon Riki? I'm sorry, I know I mispronounced your name.
I've been called a lot of other things too, so it's okay. Good evening, Mayor Franklin and Council. My name is Rhiannon Ricky. I'm a program supervisor for the Tobacco Control Program at Vista Community Clinic. I'd like to thank you for your continued support in reducing youth access to tobacco products here in the city of Vista. We've collected over 700, almost 700 postcards with signatures of community members who want to protect the youth of Vista from the harms of the tobacco industry. Some of you on council have even signed these at community events. I'd like to read you just a couple of quick postcard comments. So this is all of our postcards, by the way. These are for you. We need to update tobacco licenses to make sure our youth don't get their hands on tobacco products. Youth are our future. If we don't make it right for them and their health, we aren't really doing anything. Tobacco harms everyone, not just the smoker. I want the world to be the best it can be for our future generations. And children are the future of our city. So these are just a couple of quotes from those postcards. It's very easy to see the theme of many of the comments in these almost 700 signatures, that youth are the future of this city. We applaud this city and its efforts to not only protect youth, but to ensure that tobacco products are sold responsibly and safely. Should you need any further resources, we would be happy to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Miguel Castillo. Followed, and our next speaker will be Nathalia Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, council members and mayor. I'm Miguel Castillo. I'm a youth advocate and a member of Stay Club, spreading tobacco awareness for the youth at Vista High School. And I just want to I want to thank y'all for acknowledging the problem with tobacco in our community. I'm really against tobacco because I see it every day at my school. I started seeing it more in middle school and elementary. My cousins are starting to see it in their elementary schools, which is surprising. I want this problem to be fixed in order for our future generations to not be exposed to these substances. And I just want to thank you all for considering all of our thoughts that we have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Nathalia Gonzalez, followed by Eric O'Leary.
Good afternoon, council members and mayor. I'm Natalia Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the Vista High School Stay Club and just all youth in Vista. I did want to speak on the dangers of tobacco and this amendment that we're all here to request. Tobacco, when I say tobacco, I'm not just talking about what our last generation was affected with. So many of us are growing up with adults who smoke, with family members who smoke, but now we're starting to see more of e-cigarettes, which I think is one of our main problems. If tobacco is being sold, e-cigarettes are being sold. E-cigarettes, they're a little bit more disguised. They don't have the same smell a cigarette does. They don't have the same look a cigarette does, but the effects and the dangers of it are even more there. When I say this, I'm talking more about not just the youth who are affected by smoking these cigarettes. I'm talking about their peers. I'm talking about their siblings. I'm talking about their family members because of secondhand smoke, which is just as dangerous as smoking the cigarette. In our schools, we're starting to see a lot of this in our communities where our youth are hanging out, not just at schools, at parks, at skate parks, all these places where the youth are there. I think the way I see it is if our older generation was affected by this, I don't want to see our newer generation, as in me. I think it's pretty important to see this as a different perspective of not just someone of an older generation, but someone who's currently affected by this. And sorry, I really want to see this amendment enforced, and I want to see you who have the power right now, we have the power to speak to you, but you have the power to enforce it. I want to see something done with this for the youth. And that's all. I have no questions.
Thank you. Erica Leary.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Erica Leary. I'm the program manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, which serves the cities of Carlsbad, Oceanside, and Vista to reduce the harm of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other drugs through community action, education, support, and collaboration. I commend your efforts here this evening, but I also hope that it's just a first step of many. Our coalition adopted the One Choice Initiative in 2020 based on national research that students who use any one substance, typically alcohol, vaping, or marijuana, are significantly more likely to use others. Just this weekend, I was doing an analysis about liquor stores because Oceanside is looking to approve another liquor store, and realized that in our Tri-City area, there are 34 liquor store type licenses in the Tri-City area, and 15 of those are in the city of Vista. Only 5 are in the city of Carlsbad. And each liquor store is also a tobacco retailer, typically the front counter covered in tobacco products with candy beneath the counter. So as you look at opportunities to reduce youth access, to prevent youth vaping, I hope you take a comprehensive and holistic approach, and that you'll continue to reach out to us and other experts in the Vista Community Clinic for latest policy solutions that can be adopted and improved for our communities and youth. And just so you know that I'm not just a naysayer, keeps coming back to you saying, don't do this, don't do that. I want to remind you all, I know you heard it from our student last meeting, we are hosting a forum with the RBV Policy Club right here at the community rooms next Monday the 20th. And our coalition partners with the Elevate Youth Project to host our annual 420 Remix event, celebration of sober and drug-free life choices, which is a PSA contest open to all middle and high school students in the county. And everyone that enters is given a free pass at Vista Boomers on April 20th, which is a Thursday afternoon this year. So hope you'll help us spread the word and come out and join us as well. And thank you for your time and service to Vista.
Thank you very much. That brings us to council member comments. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, and thank you to all the community members who have advocated for increasing our penalties for tobacco retailers that sell tobacco products to youth. I do have a couple of questions. The first was regarding the fines that would be levied based on a violation. The maximum that the city of Vista would collect, is that $750?
Yes, from the retailer, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I understand that the state has a limit of $1,000, so we wouldn't be able to surpass that. And then I also wanted to clarify, when will these new rules go into effect?
It goes into effect the 31st day after the adoption of the ordinance.
Okay, so in about a month, we'd be able to see that. Okay, and then finally, when it comes to the revenues collected from these fines, would we have the discretion to set these fines aside, earmark them for, say, youth scholarships or some sort of youth programming?
I'll defer to the city manager, but I believe that would be possible.
Yes, that is possible.
Okay, so I would like to discuss that with my colleagues. I don't necessarily feel like, we need to collect those for purposes outside of youth prevention, youth programming. even the amendments that are coming before us are very oriented towards preventing tobacco use for youth. So even if we continue to improve our funding accessibility for our youth scholarships, I think that that would be a worthwhile use of these funds. So that's what I would recommend, and I'd like to hear from everyone else.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone who spoke this evening. This is something I'm very much in favor of. My grandfather, when he was 55 years old, died from lung cancer. He started smoking in his teens. My other grandfather, when I was 5 years old, died from emphysema. As I mentioned last time this was before us, my father, who's 77, who started smoking when he was 12 years old, has just been diagnosed with stage 1 emphysema. So the impacts on our youth that they don't really realize until they're much older, when it's too late to even figure out or even have fixed. Emphysema is not something that's curable. So my father now, if he chooses to change his health and lifestyle, has either 3 to 5 or 7 to 10 years to live, God willing. So the more we can take this and put stronger penalties on individuals that are trying to attract youth to these products, trying to sell to them illegally, I will be for it. For our city attorney, I know I've asked you this before, but there are some cities that impose both fines as well as forfeiture of license or penalty thereof. So could you explain why we can't do both, or why we're not recommending doing both?
We're not recommending doing both. Our research has shown that the state law caps, penalties at $1,000. So we feel that we're erring on the side of being conservative, that if we're going to suspend or revoke the license, adding the $1,000 or some monetary fine would be over the state limit and allow a violator to potentially successfully contest the violation. So we want to make sure this is bulletproof so that they won't have any ability to appeal it.
And the state maximum is $1,000?
The state maximum is $1,000 based on the Business and Professions codes, yeah.
If my colleagues would so consent, I'd like to see it raised to $1,000 as opposed to $750 for the first fine, and then move forward with the same suspension time frame and then revocation. And then aside from that, I think Councilmember Lenz's suggestion of using those funds to go towards scholarships would be a great idea, so I'd like to see that as well. I'd like to hear what my other council members have to say.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. And I was going to ask the same question. If the max is 1,000, why aren't we doing 1,000? When we suspend their license or revoke their license later, that's not like an additional financial penalty, right? So by 1,000, it keeps it bulletproof, right? And it gets us an extra $250 for kids. I like it. I like the idea of earmarking funds, not only for scholarships, but also for youth prevention programs, such as the Stay Clubs event here that they're having to, at the Morris Vance Room here at City Hall. I mean, if there's some way that these funds can be put in a pool for tobacco prevention or education or scholarships, I think it'd be great, as long as it's allocated towards some type of pool that goes towards students and the youth that's affected. So I like that. I definitely support the fining of the retailers. I think that the retailers should be training their employees, and that their employees, even if they do make a mistake, the retailers should also be fined, because it's their responsibility to make sure they have good employees who are following the rules and not giving any homie hookups or anything crazy. So it's a really big deal to make sure that the retailer is actually taking it. When you presented this item, City Clerk, you mentioned code section 18.58.475, which talks about the distancing of a tobacco retail establishment from a school. In that, it states that we're talking about distancing tobacco stores from cannabis retailers as well. And my question for that is, since cannabis retailers are 21 and over, and this is kind of like a youth prevention thing, and is it just tobacco, or if, say, a cannabis retailer was opening a store or something, is this an overlay to anything that a cannabis dispensary would do? As you know, we have 11 cannabis dispensaries within our city, and tax-paying businesses and any overlays we're going to put on those businesses, I just want to make sure that I understand. So are we saying you can never open any type of establishment that has tobacco within 1,000 feet of your current establishment? Or is it like only if it's tobacco, or, because one of the other ones said, hey, it was a liquor store. I mean, I don't know what it is.
So again, it would apply to what we would call it like a tobacco-only store. So it wouldn't apply to a gas station, convenience store, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, the tobacco-only stores would not be allowed
Okay.
as proposed within 1,000 feet of another tobacco retailer,
That makes
cannabis
a lot of sense.
retailer, or school, which is the current.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So with that, I like the way that this is written. I think amending this section of code is long overdue and much needed in order to make sure that the businesses remain in compliance. So I would move that we close the public hearing and approve this recommendation with the corrections of a $1,000 fine, and upon the majority of the council earmarking the funds how they would like to earmark the fines once they're collected at the city level. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
First, before I even get into talking about this, I just want to say it's incredibly important that as we discuss our budget, that we do discuss having bilingual interpretation at every single council meeting and workshop. Because I think it's just a little ridiculous that the community has to tell us so many days in advance in order to do that. So I really thank Imelda for providing our interpretation today. Okay, so just to get a little bit more information regarding the idea of other businesses that have ancillary tobacco, what is the reason that we wouldn't be able to put an overlay on those businesses? I guess I haven't quite understood that.
I'm already on. That's really more of a policy decision. So and I'll refer to the city attorney, but I believe that if you prohibited it, I don't know if you could do it distance-wise, or if you'd have to do a more broad stroke of prohibiting the sale.
We're concerned that if there are the retailer sells multiple items, not just tobacco, then we're going to be kind of running into a due process taking kind of issue, and so we'd have to do a lot more extensive research and outreach to that community, to these retailers, and to find out where their positions would be on this before we could recommend a major change like that too.
Okay, and is that something that staff is looking into?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Our direction, my understanding, was just tobacco-only retailers.
Okay. So I'm just because it's on the agenda as something that we can't do, I know for one, that's something that I would love for staff to look into to see what can be done.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, the more that we can restrict tobacco, the bigger the public health benefit is. And we already have a lot of stores like this that have been grandfathered in. So I'm assuming that we can't even touch those. But if we can, that would be great too. I don't know if we could investigate that. But just with the sheer amount of convenience stores, markets, and other businesses that do sell tobacco that are already grandfathered in, I think it's important that we don't continue the expansion of tobacco.
So we will definitely look into that and with a kind of broad brush and kind of report back to council on that, what we find.
Okay, perfect, yeah. And because I'm assuming that would also, like a smoke shop would fit into that as well if they're going to be selling products other than paraphernalia for, say, cannabis, that right now it is permissible for them to also sell tobacco.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so thank you for answering that question. I want to say to everybody at State Club who has come in the various meetings that we've had about trying to reduce the public harm of tobacco in our city, I want to thank you all so much. You know, at Vista High School, I was part of different clubs like CSF and Key Club, and I would have loved to have been part of State Club. I would have been right there with y'all, but probably too shy to come up and speak. So I just want to give you all a shout out. Incredible comments. I know how difficult that is. And hopefully this isn't the first time that you come to this chambers and the first time that you speak. We want to continue to hear your commitment to creating a better community and all the different ideas that you have to do that. It's so important. And, you know, one time when I came up here back in January 2017, I didn't stop coming. So hopefully one of y'all will be in our seats in the future. So I'm all on board with increasing the fee to $1,000, and this is within a 3-year period. Is that correct? So
is
for
correct.
3 years, they would be capped at $1,000 as a fine.
As a fine, but the next step would be the suspension and up to revocation, which quite honestly is going to be a lot more than $1,000.
Okay, yeah. So in a 3-year period, the max fine is going to be, and then it just restarts.
Yes, so hopefully we won't get any money for your scholarship program. We'll get it from
Yeah,
somewhere
hopefully
else.
no one is breaking the law, right? And I think that this is a long, this is overdue. And I really appreciate Councilmember Melendez for all the incredible work of communicating with the public and ensuring that what was brought forward to council was a really comprehensive review and discussion about this topic. And that 3-year period, does that elapse? Is that like a fiscal year or a calendar year?
No, it's a rolling year. So once they have the first violation, it's 3 years till that date.
All right, 365 days times 3. Okay, perfect. And I do agree with the collection of fees going back into prevention for our youth and the different ways that that can look. I thought that was a great recommendation that Councilmember Green made, that, you know, even some of these events that are for prevention of tobacco and other substances, that maybe there could be some additional funding to help not only make that event really great, but, you know, have multiple events like that throughout the year. So I agree with that. And that's about it for me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. So I'll just clarify that I would support increasing to a $1,000 fine and to earmark funds for youth programming and prevention. And that I'll second that motion to close the public hearing and accept the changes. And I would also support directing staff to do a little bit more research and just know what our options are. I know that there are students and parents of high schoolers that are concerned that retailers that are selling tobacco products are selling tobacco products really close to school. So I just would like to see what our authority is there. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of our remarks, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that came to speak on this item. Gracias a todo para hablar esta noche. I also support the item and the amendments made on the dais. So with that, if you would, please cast your votes. And that item passes unanimously. That'll bring us to our third and final public hearing regarding the 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, Amendment Number 3. The public hearing is now open. Our Finance Director, Mike Sylvia, will introduce the item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's third public hearing will actually be detailed by Sarah Taylor, our budget manager, and she'll lead you through the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This report is for an amendment to the 2023 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. known as the RTIP. The RTIP is Sandag's program that includes proposed projects for transit improvement in the San Diego region, including projects that are eligible for Transnet funding. Transnet is the countywide voter-approved half-cent sales tax distributed to local agencies based on population and miles maintained. And the RTIP is a 5-year investment plan for Sandag, similar to our 6-year capital improvement plan. There is just one project that is included in this amendment to the RTIP. The slide shows the Transnet programming changes for this project, and the changes include increased funding of $542,000 for the pedestrian mobility sidewalk project, and this will be primarily used for sidewalk construction improvements, including the construction of a sidewalk along Highland Drive from Maryland Drive to North Melrose. In addition to authorizing the RTIP, the approval of the staff report will also increase the capital project budget for fiscal year 2022-23. Sandag does require each local agency to hold a public hearing for Transnet programming changes and for a resolution to be approved by the City Council for each amendment before any updates to the RTIP are accepted. This concludes my presentation, and we are available for any questions.
We don't have any public comment on this item, so we'll begin with council comments. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Is this part of our Safe Routes to School, or is it outside of that scope?
This is I can't answer that question directly. I don't have that knowledge, but I do know that the selection of this sidewalk portion was related to the access for Maryland Elementary School, so pedestrian access there. So I'd assume that it's part of that, but I don't have that direct knowledge.
Does anybody know? The city manager?
This sidewalk project is not part of an existing Safe Routes to School project. It's just to enhance access to the schools in general.
Okay, so it's not part of any, because we have a Safe Routes to School plan, right? And so
We
this
do.
isn't, okay, that's great. I love anything in addition to Safe Routes to School. And I will just say, and I'll, I'm a broken record on this point, but, Highland and North Melrose, that intersection is atrocious. It is absolutely, to me, inconceivable that we would have children crossing 7 lanes of high-speed traffic. So I will continue to bring that up as a point, and I really think that we need to do better on North Melrose to make it safer and to bring those communities closer together. 7 lanes of people speeding is just not conducive to a healthy community. And with that, I know that other council members have other remarks, but I would like to close the public hearing and accept staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for mentioning the Safe Routes to School, Deputy Mayor Contreras. I sat on several of those committees as a parent and helped design a lot of those Safe Routes to School that still aren't funded. We still have the diagrams and designs, and it's hard to get funding because they're a really large capital improvement project. So as a community, if you guys are talking with your senators and congressmen, tell them while they're up there in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., send us money for our Safe Routes to School programs. And thank you, City, for taking action, and Council as well. I mean, that stretch right there where it dips at Maryland, there used to not even be a stop sign right there at the parking lot by Maryland, so cars would just fly through right there. There's been several improvements. The crosswalks at the corner of Maryland and North were installed, the stoplight there. So I know there's been a lot done over there, but we obviously have a lot more to do. So thank you so much for bringing this forward. Thanks for getting it funded, getting it done, and thank you again, Deputy Mayor Contreras, for bringing to light the need for Safe Route to School improvements. With that, I will second your motion and close that public hearing.
Seeing no other requests to speak, there is a motion to second. Please cast your votes. Item is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to the first of 3 discussion items this evening. The first is oral communications on the City Council agenda. Councilmember Melendez asked for this item to be on the agenda, so I'll ask her to introduce the item.
Thank you. So I brought this item to discussion just to have an initial conversation about the order of our meetings. So our oral communications is typically at the end of our meetings. It's the last opportunity for the public to speak. And depending on how long the meeting is, sometimes we'll lose a lot of people who may want to engage with us. I remember recently there were some older gentlemen who wanted to give some comments about pickleball, and it wasn't related to the agenda, so they had to stay and wait all the way till like 11 o'clock at night when we were finishing up our meeting. So I think that what we could do is follow the model of the county board, school board, other cities, where they have a shorter portion at the beginning of the meeting, maybe 30 minutes or maybe a set amount of speakers for oral communications. And then we'll have the rest of our business. People can speak on agendized items as they have tonight. And then we can have an additional time to speak for the remainder of speakers at the end of the meeting. So that way, if people want to come in, get their comments in, tell us how they feel, and then be able to go and have dinner, they're going to be able to do that. So let me know your thoughts. I would just make a motion that we change our structure of our meeting so that we can have 2 opportunities for people to give oral communications.
I just want to say that I absolutely agree with you. I do think we should take the first 10 of our public speakers at the beginning of the meeting and not make people wait till the very end. I've also said before that I think that we should set some number, perhaps when there are 30 or more comments observed, comment cards submitted, we might want to reduce comment time to 2 minutes. This council has done that for the entire 8 years that I've sat on the council. And when we do have a very large number of speakers, like one of our recent meetings, we had over 60 speakers, and that extra minute for each of them is an extra hour in the meeting. And it did result in a number of speakers, when they were called on, not being present in the chamber. As meetings go to a late hour, it is not always possible for all of our residents who, many of whom who engage in our process happen to be older. And so, I think we need to think about the duration of our meetings so that we can encourage the public participation that we all talk about. But I would agree with that concept and like to hear from you on my comment. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
I apologize. We do have one member of the public that wanted to comment on this, and that's Erica Leary. Forgive me.
I'm back. Good evening, council members. I didn't know this item was on the agenda. I'm pleasantly surprised. I didn't even know what it was. I thought, I got to talk on this because this has been a pet peeve of mine for years. We have students sometimes that want to come make an announcement or share something, and they won't sit through an entire meeting. So Carlsbad, my understanding, takes the first 5. If you want to limit time, they do 15 minutes. 15 minutes, 30, anything would be wonderful. And then Councilmember Contreras' comment about always having translators here, that was music to my ears. That's something we hope Oceanside adopts. They haven't yet, so if this is the first, that's great. Then my next dream would be if you guys could follow Sandag's model, where they do allow remote virtual public participation, and they have the Spanish channel available also. That's come up in Oceanside. There's some legal issues about if there's technology challenges, they have to reschedule the meeting. So I don't know all of the logistics. I just know Sandag meetings do a wonderful job of allowing virtual participation, and I love the discussion here to encourage community involvement. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and we'll go back to Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Leary, for speaking. I know you've probably waited to the end of the council meeting more than once to give some comments, so appreciate your take on that. I love the idea, Councilor Melendez. I think it's great. I've sat on this dais for almost 6+ years, and the pickleball guy was really, a eye-opener for me, not only the shirt, but also the amount of time that he had to wait in order to speak. And I really feel like that was kind of like when we got people who are speaking on non-agendized items, hopefully, a lot of times they're here early even. I mean, they show up early to the meetings because they're so excited about speaking. So I'd be good with the first 10. I think 30 minutes with the first 10 would be great. And maybe do it before right after the consent calendar, I would say, would be a great spot for it. Typically, the consent calendar goes fast. If you want to do it after the presentation section of the agenda, I guess we could do it before, but I think it's more appropriate once we get into the flow of the meeting. So I'd say right after the consent calendar, allow the first 10 speakers that are non-agendized items, obviously. And then I also like the idea, if you have more than, say, 30 speaker cards, that's going to be 90 minutes of speaking, an hour and a half. A lot of times those 30 speakers are going to be saying the same things. A lot of times they get up there and be like, I just want to echo what this person said. I do want to, if there are more than 30, if there's a possibility, and I know some speakers have asked this before, if they could give their time, it's like, there's more than 30, so we're only going to give you guys 2 minutes. But if you guys want to pool your time, you can come up together and pool your time together. Because I know what we're trying to do is get out of here at a reasonable hour and make sure that they all can get out at a reasonable hour. We're paid to be here. We'll stay here till midnight tonight if you'd like. So if you got more people who want to come talk about things, bring them on. That's why we're here. But I think that it does do a disservice to the public to make them stay here till, number one, 12 a.m. to give comments on something, and then also to have them get up after 20 people have already said what they were going to say. So I'm definitely down with that, but I'd say give everybody their 3 minutes unless it is an excessive number. And a lot of people don't take the full 3 minutes either, but as you know, there are some that do. So I love this item. I don't think there's anything to really change with the motion, aside from just making sure we specify there's going to be 2 times to talk and maybe the time frame of the first speaker. So I suggest 30 minutes, which would be 10 speakers, and then anything over 10 speakers would have to go to the back end of the meeting. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
We are, at least I've been promised, like I say, it's been 2 years that I've been promised. And I see Amanda Lee back there smiling because she knows what I'm about to ask. And I think she gave me an answer several times. It's June, right? Yeah, thumbs up. Shout out to Amanda Lee for being an incredible member of the community here in Vista, and we appreciate everything that you do and have done. We will have the opportunity for virtual public comment. I don't know what it's going to look like. Again, I've been pushing for this. And come June of this year, so right before we have to go to recess, we should have the ability for folks to be able to participate virtually and provide a public comment. Because I think it's critical. Not everybody can make it here and they want to participate. And it's not the same thing to send an email as it is to stand in front of the council, or for us to be sitting here and have to hear what you have to say. I love that. I love having to hear what everybody has to say. I think it's critical for us to be in that position where we're taking in community feedback. So that's going to be great. I'm okay with 10 speakers. I think I would prefer 5 speakers, but 10 speakers is fine. And I actually do not support the reduction in allotted time. I think 3 minutes is already not a lot of time for folks to provide a public comment. And if they so wish to not provide a full 3 minutes, then that's their prerogative. So I just wouldn't be in favor of that. I know that's something that traditionally we have done, but just like other things that the city has done traditionally, we come to find out that it wasn't necessarily 100% within the framework of our municipal code. So that's why at this time there is 3 minutes, because that wasn't something that we probably should have been cutting down before. So that's where I'm at. And yep, that's it for me. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I would support 10 speakers at the beginning or after consent calendar. I know that we can't really discuss it at this time, but for a future discussion, could we look into other cities and perhaps see if they do have time limits on the length of meetings? Because as Councilmember Green mentioned, we've been here till midnight, I think twice, talking to an empty room. Sometimes I feel like it's not the best time to do business that late in the evening, and I really don't know if it's a service to the public in doing so. But I'd be open to the discussion with the council. I'm not, I'd like to hear their thoughts on it. And then I know Councilmember Green suggested pooling of time. I don't know how much I'd really want to jump on board with that unless we had like a concise amount of time. I don't want to run into a situation where someone speaks for 30 minutes.
So I can tell you, for example, the city of San Diego allows a speaker to donate their 3 minutes to another speaker, but in order to make the donation happen, the speaker that's donated time has to be in the chamber. So they can't simply just fill out a card and then leave. So, basically they see it as a zero-sum game that they're allowing these people to speak. So if one person wants to let someone else continue because they think their thoughts are great on the subject, they can donate that time, and then they're just forfeiting their time.
And I do agree with Councilmember Contreras, 3 minutes is not a lot of time to speak. I'm open to a larger discussion amongst the council about that. But I know 3 minutes up here, I've probably talked for 3 minutes right now, and it's, doesn't seem like it. So just want to give my feedback on that, but I definitely would support the 10 speakers in the beginning of the meeting, and then just have a larger discussion about all the other items at another time.
Thank you very much. And Council Deputy Mayor Contreras.
There's a motion on the floor, right? Or was there not a motion made?
But we're just looking for,
Okay.
we're just looking for direction, so.
Okay.
If I could, I was going to actually ask if we could poll the council, because 5 or 10 was mentioned. Who would be for 5 and who would be for 10? If you're for 5 speakers at the front, would you put your hand up? Okay.
I'm for all the above right now, so.
Okay, well, we're trying to give majority direction to staff.
Great.
which
It looks like
doesn't bring that.
10
Okay,
is the majority.
I see direction for 10. If you're in favor of pooling time, would you please indicate by raising your hand? Okay.
Just me? I'll raise it.
All right, and
Pull your time.
and if you're in favor of going to 2 minutes after 30, or if there's 30 speakers present, would you raise your hand?
So I would just like to get
Information.
Okay.
I know it seems mundane to get more information.
No, that's fine.
For that, I'm sorry, Mayor. We do have to bring it back for a discussion if you want to, because it would be a municipal code change, so an ordinance would have to be adopted, so.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking this whole thing needs to come back for adoption in the municipal code. And I see Councilmember Melendez would like to speak.
In response to your poll, Mr. Mayor, I have no idea how the public feels about reducing their time to speak, so I could not give any kind of commentary whether I would support that or not. But what was the other? There was another question about polling time.
Pooling time.
I don't have an opinion about that either, but yeah, that's all.
So my thought was, and this is going to have to come back to us for final adoption of a municipal code amendment. So I think we've given, the staff feel that they have enough direction here to bring back a proposal. We can obviously amend that proposal from the floor when it comes back to us.
Yep. Just to clarify, for the order of your meetings for oral communications, we only need to bring you a resolution. So if there's changes to the amount of time a public speaker has, then that would be an ordinance. So it would be 2 different matters.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Similar to Councilmember Melendez, I've seen the system work in the city of San Diego. I've participated in some of their meetings and have donated my time to someone who I thought was going to do an incredible job. So I have seen that work relatively well. I'm open to it. So But I don't know if that's something that I would support or not at this time. I just don't have enough information, but I would be open to continuing that conversation. When it goes, when we're talking about limiting the time from 3 minutes, I think 30 speakers is still, like, I feel like the threshold would have to be much higher than that to justify reducing the time. I don't even know what number that would be, so I just don't support that at this time. And yeah, I just, in order to do that, we would have to amend the municipal code, because right now it tells you, the public, that you have 3 minutes, and we weren't really supposed to be reducing your time before. So I apologize that the city has been having that traditional practice, but upon investigation, is something that we weren't supposed to be doing. So hopefully, if this comes back, especially when it comes to reducing your time to speak to us, that you have some commentary whether you like that suggestion or not. Thank you, and that's all from me.
And I would just note, with regard to, we have to amend the time for speaking at the beginning of the meeting, and it has to be the same for everyone speaking at that meeting under the Brown Act. So if we're observing 30 speaker cards at the literally, what we're talking about, what was said is after the consent agenda. If we're already at 30 speaker cards by that point, I would suggest that probably we're going to be well past 60 by the time it comes to an end. So staff has said that they will bring some information back from some other municipalities so we can compare. And I think the staff feel like you have enough direction on this from the council. Good. Okay, with that, I see no other comments on this. I think staff has enough direction. And that will bring us to item D2 regarding short-term rentals. Councilmember Melendez asked for this item to be on the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Wonderful, thank you. I have a few slides, just some simple slides to go over, if we could bring them up. Awesome. So thank you for entertaining this discussion on short-term rentals, the rules and regulations in the city of Vista. I'm bringing this item forward after much discussion with neighbors and constituents in my district. And I believe in advance of this meeting, notices were provided to business owners of short-term rentals, to the property owners and management of short-term rentals. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager?
We sent notices to all of the registered property owners of short-term rentals that we have record of.
Okay, awesome. So everybody can be sure to be included and participate in this discussion. So I'll go to my first slide. And I just want to define what is a short-term rental. A short-term rental, sometimes called a vacation rental, I think it's colloquially a lot of times referred to as an Airbnb, although Airbnb is just one platform. It is a furnished house, apartment, or dwelling unit that is rented for short amounts of time. The guest typically books a stay of a few days or a few weeks, but fewer than 28 days. The amenities, rates, and other factors may be preferred to a hotel or a motel stay. Next slide, please. So in regards to rules and regulations for short-term rentals, the City of Vista does not currently have any rules and regulations for STRs. However, when comparing other cities, rules and regulations may include a permitting process with requirements for operation, and the requirements for operation have included rules on amenities, a minimum length of stay, parking requirements, quiet hours, and many other conditions may be considered as requirements for operation. And then, of course, if you're going to have a permit process, then it is logical to follow that you would have penalties for violations of those permits. So next slide, please. In addition to a permit as an initial way of developing rules and regulations for short-term rentals, other cities have, a wide range of rules and regulations, including limitations on the concentration of a short-term rental in neighborhoods or districts. So for example, there are some cities that have a limitation of 20% of all of the housing units it's capped at 20% of the housing units be used for short-term rentals. Another regulation may be a moratorium on the total STRs in the city or a district. Also, restrictions on the type of dwelling unit for a short-term rental. For example, single-family homes only, and restrictions on short-term rentals in apartment homes. Another restriction is limitations based on secondary use of the property. So in essence, this is a short-term rental that is owner-occupied only. And I believe as an example of another city, the city of Palm Springs has this example. And then another regulation would be limitations on the number of permits held by a property owner. I believe the city of San Diego has a limit of 1 permit per owner per area. So they have 4 different areas, and an owner of a short-term rental has a limit of 1 permit per area. So these are just several examples that I've been able to find in my own research of rules and regulations for short-term rentals, but I imagine there are many more, and there are ones that we may even imagine together. Next slide, please. So the reason why I'm bringing this forward is because I do want us to consider implementing rules and regulations for short-term rentals. And there are several reasons for that. The first, and truly the, I spelled respect wrong, the fundamental reason why we're here is respect for zoning in residential neighborhoods. So when a short-term rental is operating, they are providing a certain type of use that is not quite consistent with the zoning of a residential neighborhood. So by providing a permit process and reasonable rules and regulations, we are able to accommodate that use in what is typically a residential zone. So I really believe that the fundamental reason why we need rules and regulations for short-term rentals is to be respectful of zoning in residential neighborhoods. And then as a product of that, to also address neighborhood concerns such as noise and parking, et cetera. I have heard several of these complaints, and I imagine others have as well. In responding to these complaints, I believe that implementing a permit process may assist us in reducing calls to service to our sheriff department. Oftentimes, calls to short-term rentals are not handled until much, much later, especially if they are noise complaints. And perhaps there would be a way of addressing these calls without needing to provide service from the sheriff department. So in effect, there would be a more efficient deployment of enforcement for complaints. Perhaps we can utilize our code enforcement to handle complaints. And ultimately, if a permit holder is violating the regulations of their permit, then they may in fact have the penalty of losing their permit and therefore no longer be able to operate. So some of the reoccurring challenges and reoccurring calls would not result in ongoing complaints, as the complaints would no longer be occurring with that business no longer being allowed to operate. But I think it's important to ensure that we have consistent expectations set for local businesses. So most of the folks that are operating short-term rentals, and I think in general, are wanting to abide by the same rules and have consistency amongst them, right? I don't want one short-term rental to have certain rules that another short-term rental isn't expected to have. So by doing an ordinance, we can have consistent and regular expectations set for these local businesses. And at the end of the day, it's something that will be protective, because if you are abiding within the permit, then you are able to continue to provide that business and that service, which I think you should be allowed to do. Next, I think that the creation of a regulated market would ensure that taxes or other revenues are properly documented and collected. I know that we have a set number of known STRs that we've communicated with, but I'm not sure if there are more that are operating. And then lastly, I believe that reasonable regulations now will prevent unmanageable STR circumstances in the future. Vista continues to grow. We are a city that is happening. I want people to come to our city, and I want to encourage growth and adventure here. And being able to implement some reasonable regulations will assist us in future times where maybe STRs are even more prevalent. So finally, I will go to the next slide. And my recommendations for city staff, in order to implement rules and regulations for short-term rentals, I ask that the city council direct staff to do the following. Develop an ordinance for short-term rentals to include permits with requirements for operation and penalties for violations of the permit. And here's where we can have a discussion of what requirements for operation will mean for our city. And then I'd also like to have staff conduct some research and present information about how staff time will be required to implement a new ordinance. I know that city manager and I have had conversations about how much time it would require to implement a permitting process and this potential new ordinance. So I would definitely want to ensure that we are fully cognizant of how much staff time is being used before we adopt any new ordinance. And with that, I invite us to go to the next slide and have a discussion about rules and regulations for short-term rentals. I think together, let's discuss an ordinance that will be a good fit for the city of Vista. And of course, I would love to take some public comments right now and hear from the community, and then hopefully hear from my fellow council members to discuss what might be appropriate for us.
Any other comments before we go to the public comments? Okay, if you would come forward when you hear your name called and be ready to make your remarks. We have San Gordon, followed by Omer Nakel or Akel, followed by Alexandra Martin.
Hey. I am an Airbnb owner here in Vista, but a new one. But I have been a super host on Airbnb since 2014 in Vermont and Savannah. So I'm really well versed in everything you're talking about, and I totally back that there needs to be something going on. When I first signed in, there was no zoning. I got my permit, or not the permit, but the business license, and I was thinking, well, that's gonna change soon, because I knew it would have to, you know. So let me just tell you a little bit about what I do now. So I came here to be with family. I didn't even go to college till I was 40. So I now have a master's degree and I teach, but I did not make a lot of money. I was an artist, and so as a result, it's been pretty hand to mouth. I like a really nice place to live. That's been my motivation all along. In Vermont, I'm like, I can buy this little house on a lake and I can make it beautiful with blood, sweat, and tears, and I did. And for years I operated it until last year. And then I went to Savannah, and I was teaching then, and I got another place because I wanted to live near Forsyth Park. I couldn't afford anything near Forsyth Park, but I could get a condo and do Airbnb, and so I did that successfully for a couple years till I needed to come back here for my family. So that's my story. Right now, it's been a lot of work getting my place up and running, but it is. And I love it, and it's beautiful, and I just want to stay there till I'm old, because it used to be a place that housed senior nuns, apparently. It's just really laid out well for that sort of thing. So I have a lot of pride in what I do. My guests seem to be staying mostly a month. I had one guest stay a week. Everybody else seems to want to stay about a month, so I'm having longer ones. They're here to work. When I got here, I did an Airbnb in Oceanside, actually 3 different ones, and they were all in Oceanside. So I know what I offer. I know what they offered. I know that I didn't have any other options, really. And once you hit over 55, nobody really wants to have you come into their place just to hang out. So there's not a lot of options. So I feel like I'm offering something to the community. And at the same time, I'm able to afford to live where I want to live, which is in Vista, in a beautiful place. Let me think. Why not just rent rooms out? I have 4 seconds left. The reason is protection. Airbnb protects me. I don't have to have any.
Thank you. Omer, followed by Alexandra Martin, followed by Kimberly Jackson.
My name is Ömer Açıkel. I would like to thank everybody for taking the time, and especially Katie Melendez to bring the agenda. So I'm one of the neighbors that suffering from this short-term rental. I just want to make sure that, by the way, my comments, this 3 minutes is too short, obviously, but I gave a longer version of it, so I hope that you will have time to look at that. But we have been dealing with these problems for 4 years, and I'm sure some of you remember me because we talked before on Zoom call about 2 years ago, and nothing has been done at that time since then now. And City of, obviously you know that the license is given without any regulation whatsoever for these non-owner occupied, meaning I just like to emphasize that there is nobody at the house, inside or outside, to regulate the behavior. So we are suffering, especially 3 of my neighbors, including myself, for 4 years now. And but I did my best. When we first found out, it took us 7 months to find the owner. Once we find the owner, I just brought all these 8 neighbors of mine with an email group, and I include the owner and his property manager to resolve the problem. And we were trying to be bribed. And then I just did actually 4 weeks of mitigation, so gave feedback about the noise, and I got nothing back. My last text was about a party that 3 texts and no response, call, no response. And ever since, I don't have contact with the owner nor the property manager with that group. So if you go to this property, if you search, and what you will find is that the house rules, there's an item that says there's no parties. But if you scroll down more, there's a fee for partying, $200. So the renters pay $200 as an endorsement to party. The owner pockets the $200, and we, as you know, suffered the consequences of such parties. And this is going on for 4 years. So what I suggest is there are 2 problems with this. One is that these houses, there's a commonality. There are either a water feature in the house, in the yard. So there's a pool, and the house is big. So the property I'm next to accommodates 12 people. It used to be 8, they increased to 10, now it's 12 people. Just can't stay there. And imagine during the daytime how many people they can accommodate. So there should be a size or amenity limit somehow to regulate the behavior of people. And also, I suggest a suspension or revoking the license, because licenses are supposed to be
Thank you very much. Alexandra Martin, followed by Kimberly Jackson, followed by Jessica Solano.
Hello, thank you for your time. So I have nerves. So I live next to a very negative situation with Airbnb, but I also have 5 houses down, a neighbor who's very respectful. As a business owner myself, I am happy that my neighbors get to have an opportunity for extra income in their business. But also as a business owner, I know there are rules that I have to follow in my business. And currently right now, there seems to be no protection or ability to say the same for the business in this circumstance here. There are definitely concerns in safety because while I am fence to fence in the negative short-term rental, I can see people doing extreme things such as climbing the roof to jump into the pool. In this case, it's a large exterior amenity. So I do greatly value the idea of an owner-occupied situation in the presence of a large exterior amenity or facility, especially with noise. As in the slides earlier, I took note of unnatural use of certain large appliances, pool engines, anything of that nature, music, stereos. These are all things that in normal use creates an interesting or fun atmosphere in our neighborhood. In the case of a business, in my experience, will have extreme negative effects where I don't get to hear the birds. I hear shouting, screaming, loitering, probably drunken party situations. And for me, it's not really a living situation, which is odd. It's a home. It's where I live. This is something also that bleeds into my sleep because there is no way I can do anything with code enforcement or the police officers. They sort of send me back and forth in both offices. Whether it's 1:30 in the morning waiting for an officer, because I know he's probably got a really tough situation. Why would he come out here for noise? So all of these make it really difficult to really advocate too much to not have protection. I really strongly agree that there should be some sense and ability to have equal rules that everyone can follow, as every living situation is different. So are these Airbnbs, VRBO, short-term rentals, and if we could have a way to be able to keep them all accountable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kimberly Jackson, followed by Jessica Solano, followed by Juan Alvarez.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thanks for having us tonight. My name's Kimberly. I've run a firm called Vacation Rentals by Kimberly for 12 years. We currently only manage 3 units in Vista. We operate these 3 units for homeowners that have deep-rooted seeds in your community. They've raised their kids here. They've currently moved away for jobs or to care for elderly family, and they wish to keep their home and not sell it so they can return for holidays to visit other friends and family. Just to give you a backstory on our roots here in Vista. So Mayor Franklin mentioned imposing minimal rules and regulations mirroring other cities. Like I mentioned, I've been around 12 years, so I've sat on many committees at city council meetings in City of San Diego, City of Del Mar, City of Solana Beach, City of Oceanside, City of Carlsbad. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of testimony on what I've seen that works and what I think doesn't work. And I'd like to offer my services. If anybody wants to form a committee, I'd be very happy to sit on that and help you guys formulate rules and regulations. I've worked with the Coastal Commission. We don't have that here, but I know what works and what does not work. I do suggest a permit process. I think you have a lot of unpermitted units. I think we PIR data and there's 19 registered users. You have probably 100 vacation rentals here in town that are not paying TOT, and they do need to be giving back to your city. So I do recommend you do put a permit process in place. I recommend that you not make it an elaborate process to sign up for. City of Solana Beach has been very successful in their permitting process. It's not elaborate, it's a minimal fee. A city not to look at for that process is Encinitas. They've completely shot themselves in the foot. They've created so much work for their staff that they went from having a 1-year permit to making it 2 years because it's too elaborate and it's put too much pressure on their staff. We are all for the permit process. 3 strikes and you're out. If you have a violation and it's found to be a problem, 1 strike. 3 of them, you're out. It's the only way to pull your permit is to have a permit and have 3 strikes and you're out. We are all for following city rules, including trash, noise ordinances. Everything that's already in place, it should be in place for your vacation rentals too. We are all for paying TOT. If you're not paying TOT, you're not giving back to the community. Absolutely everybody should be paying TOT to help support code enforcement, to help with your permitting process. We are all for occupancy, 2 per bedroom plus 2 for the house, no party houses. We do not recommend a minimum length of stay. It's going to be so elaborate for your staff to follow that. A bad renter is a bad renter. It doesn't matter if they're in the home for 2 nights, 4 nights, 6 nights, 28 nights. A bad renter is a bad renter. So that's kind of what I have to say. Again, I'd love to offer my services to help you guys. I think you're moving in the right direction by collecting data. And I can't wait to see what happens. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Jessica Solano, followed by Juan Alvarez, followed by Kaim Deng. And if you would, if you're in the queue, if you would go ahead and please come forward and be ready to speak when your name is called. We'd appreciate that.
Hi, council members, honorable mayor. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm also here with Vacation Rentals by Kimberly. And I just want to basically say the same lines as Kimberly as well. I know that regulation is necessary. There's a lot of short-term rentals right now in the city of Vista that are not paying TOT, which is a huge disadvantage to the city, where the city could be bringing a lot more money to be able to, provide a better city for your citizens. So I do definitely think we should make this process simple. Like Kimberly said, the city of Encinitas has been a nightmare to deal with. It takes about, I would say, 5 months just to get a permit or a renewal, sometimes even longer. They have a super extensive process. And for owners that don't have anybody to help them, it is very difficult for them to, submit an application. So you want to make it simple for them to be able to apply for a permit and not, deal with all the legalities of just having a short-term rental permit. I definitely also think that the regulations should be in line with whatever you're already asking hotels to abide by, make it fair for everyone, because these cities are just imposing all of these regulations that do not currently align with what they're asking hotels to do. They're even more elaborate. So just make sure, I would say, make it fair for short-term rentals. And then there's no reason to impose a minimum night stay for the city. I mean, unless you are doing at least 2 nights. Anything less, obviously, will bring bad guests into homes. So I don't think it would be fair to impose anything more than 2 nights. Also, no caps. I think homeowners have the right to rent their vacation rentals or their homes to rent to the public. The city, I don't think, should impose too much in that, in putting a cap on how many rentals can be allowed. And then, we just, I heard this lady's testimony about how, it's tough for her. She's got people being, a nuisance, and I know some short-term rentals are not being watched after, but, we don't want to be a nuisance to the neighbors, to the city at all. We want to make sure that all of the guests are abiding by rules. So definitely having those rules set in place will be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Juan Alvarez, followed by Kaim Deng, followed by Jonathan Love.
Council, my name is Juan Alvarez. I come from Silicon Valley. I moved to Vista in 2011 when I worked for the golf industry at Titleist. 2 years ago, I did a 1031 exchange and I purchased a property in Vista. I have 2 properties on a 1-acre lot. I rent them out through Airbnb and VRBO. I'd like to point out my experience. I sympathize with the gentleman who complained about the noise and the regulations. I do have an observation between Airbnb and VRBO customers. VRBO customers, because you rent out the entire house, seem to be more respectful of rules. There seems to be more of a party mentality on Airbnb. Like Kimberly mentioned, I'd be more than happy to participate in some kind of council community involvement activity. To me as a homeowner, I am very shocked and surprised that the city of Vista does not have proper documentation or a way of auditing how many people or how many licenses are out there, because I saw a huge decline in my business last year. I started this in 2021, and then last 2021, I made $123,000. That was $12,000 for the city of Vista. That is good money. I don't mind paying it. But it does offend me to find out that I'm paying my share, but other people are not. I don't even know if they have a license, which creates the danger problems that so many people have addressed before. So I am full for enforcement. I would like for you guys to consider the public opinions, and you don't need to invest in research because we can give you that research ourselves. Actually, you know, most of the items that I want to address have been addressed by the two previous people. So if you have any questions for me right now, I'd like to use those 50 seconds left. I do have a comment, and I don't know if it's appropriate right now. I did not know that there was a 28-day limit. In 2021, I had 2 short-term rentals, but they stayed for me for more than 2 months at a time. Yet, I paid TOT taxes. And when I went into the office to provide my VRBO documentation, I was honestly surprised that they dismissed it. Like, no, you don't need to provide any documentation. I think that we should provide documentation so that the city knows that you're collecting the proper amount. Having said that, I'm questioning whether I could get a refund. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaim Deng, followed by Jonathan Love, followed by Heidi Ventura.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for the comments. My name is Kim Deng. I've been a first-time homeowner in the city of Vista for 10 years. This is my 10th year of owning my first home up the street. I'm 5 minutes away, not even. I started Airbnb as a traveler in 2011. I'm a young entrepreneur, not anymore, I'm 46 now. At that time I was. And it was something that was majestic to me, that I could actually travel and still be an entrepreneur as a young person. I told myself if I ever owned a home, I'd like to give back in that way, and so I did. I started my Airbnb venture in 2016. What I've learned and what I want to come across with those who are doing it professionally is that those who are abiding by regulations are stepping up to have business licensing, to pay TOTs before they're even regulated. And so a behavior of a responsible citizen will be shown prior to having regulations actually start. And that's something that I wanted to echo with everyone who has been up so far. I think it regulates greed too on a lot of these situations here, and I'm not a greedy person. The reason why I opened up my Airbnb is to have single moms and dads come stay to go to Legoland. I remember my story, so I know there's plenty of stories like that out there for me. I'm not charging any crazy cleaning fees. My house is not a party house, no smoking, lights out at 10. It's a family place and it's quiet. It's been that way since 2016 with no complaints. I have over 250 reviews. I'm Superhost, and I just wanted to be a representative of someone in your city that is doing it right, wants to do it right, and wants to be part of the team of how to enforce how to do it right. And if you would not want to do it right, then you shouldn't be part of that type of conversation. I love my city. I am an owner-occupied. I do want to say that, but I don't know if I'll stay that way. And with what Kim said, if there's regulations that aren't too strict for that, I hope to continue to be an Airbnb host. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jonathan Love, followed by Heidi Ventura, followed by Mark Pecha.
I'm Heidi Ventura, also with Jonathan Love. He wasn't able to be here tonight. He had to step out. But we are, with Love and Ventura Rentals, and we are a smaller company here, mostly North County, coastal, Encinitas, and venturing more into Vista and San Marcos, looking into expanding. I will say that I've been a property manager for about 10 years with long-term rentals. And, at one point, like this young lady that was here earlier saying, I started off with like being a host at home, single mom, needed, and the times I didn't have my kids, it definitely helped me make rent at the time and or be able to save up for those long summers with the kids at home and take time off of work. So those are the great benefits of starting this business for myself. And then now, fast forward some years later, being able to offer that for other people and helping them either manage their properties and or offer to families that maybe can't afford a hotel, but a nice home to come to. I definitely agree with a lot of the pros and cons here. I would say residents that have had really bad experiences with their neighbors and the parties and all of that. It's like, yeah, I'm totally for having rules and regulations, having the permits. I think that responsible hosts and people that value their business absolutely want to keep their home in good standing, in good shapes, and respect and be mindful of their neighbors. Ultimately, it ends up affecting our business. We're totally for paying the TOTs and paying whatever permits are needed. And like Kimberly mentioned, Encinitas is horrible to try to, I guess, mimic or look into. Their permit process is just horrible for us hosts and make it really difficult I happen to have 2 properties there, and it's been difficult. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark Pecha, followed by Lee Thatcher, followed by Ali Piper.
Thank you, council members, for listening. My name is Mark Pecha. I own a short-term rental in Vista. I find that Vista is one of the most beautiful places in San Diego County, and I believe the short-term rentals have a special function that they wick visitors who are looking for a house in Carlsbad or Oceanside, if they can't find one with a pool or enough bedrooms or with and they come to Vista, and I find that people are just blown away by how much they love Vista. I love recommending them to local businesses and our sites. I agree with the other professional short-term rental hosts here that there need to be some focus on the main problems. Everyone paying their due for TOT is essential and fair. Chronic noise complaints, absolutely, there should never be any detriment to the community of having a short-term, and I think any of us who are highly responsive hosts are horrified to hear those stories. And I would just suggest also with the recommendations is that keep the regulations very simply problem focused. So if you've got noise as a problem, focus just on the noise. Don't turn it into some kind of how many days or where's the owner or how many do they have. So noise, enforcement of nuisance regulations, obviously parking regulations and things like that. And I would say probably something like responsiveness by the owner and manager so it doesn't become a chronic problem. Any short-term host can have a bad guest who shows up and we have to mobilize and deal with it. And what's terrible is to hear hosts who don't care for long-term. I also believe that there is some enforcement inside some of the short-term rental websites and platforms are enforcing no parties on the inside. So there is structures that we're often trying to balance between many different things. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks.
Thank you. Lee Thatcher, followed by Ali Piper, followed by Jason Pilas.
Good evening, council members. My name is Lee. I'm from the Vista de Loma neighborhood. Our neighborhood is quiet and our neighbors are friendly. In the last few years, our neighborhood has been going through a positive change. We have a fresh crop of homeowners who are house proud and have been fixing up their homes. Many of the homes are built by the same architect, and we will share with one another our progress. This makes everyone excited to see the value of our homes going up, and since many of us have become friendly and know one another by name, we feel safer. That said, some of our neighbors currently rent on Airbnb, and it's typically a single room or their entire home when they go on vacation. Honestly, if they didn't tell us, we wouldn't know. They're that good at it. We have heard about a party house nearby that gets numerous calls for police and noise, especially during the summer. I wonder if it's Alex's. And we have noticed more and more listings in the area and are hoping for just some basic regulations, thus ensuring the value and quality of life, especially in Vista de Loma, because that's my neighborhood. I'm not going to repeat what everybody said because you perfectly outlined it. Kimberly also perfectly outlined it. I just think that there just needs to be basic rules and regulations. Also, this mitigates the police having to deal with this constantly. Person acts bad, permit gets pulled, and then it's done. Easy and simple. So thank you.
Thank you. Ali Piper, followed by Jason Pilas, followed by, I believe it's Mo.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Ali Piper. I've lived in Vista for about 19 years now, and our neighborhood is a very older, an established neighborhood, 1950s homes, very small, very quaint. When I first moved in, well, there were about 3 drug houses, which is really sad to know, but everybody kind of knew that that's where the unsavory characters, and I did my job as Mrs. Kravitz to call the Vista Sheriff as often as I could. We are so grateful in the last maybe about 3-4 years, all these people have vacated our neighborhood, and we have embraced a nice, quiet neighborhood where we all pretty much know our neighbors. We know the dogs. We have elderly neighbors. We check if their trash cans didn't come out. We call them. Are they okay? I've been injured. I've had neighbors come over and offer to take out my trash cans. I mean, we live in a wonderful neighborhood, and I came from Chula Vista, which I adored. So for me to fall in love with Vista was a big deal. So when I started hearing about these Airbnbs and I looked up one of the postings nearby, what alarmed me was that I saw that there were daily, I guess you can have a daily rental, and it was a pretty low price. So, you know, what kind of worries me is that I'm in the neighborhood where I can tell you who lives here, who comes and goes. I feel very safe. And now I have a hotel, motel situation where perhaps kids who want to go party, they say, hey, this is an easy place to come in, hang out. You know, unsavory characters, illegal activity, that's the kind of stuff I don't really want to bring into my neighborhood. So it's not that I don't think Airbnbs are wonderful. I just had a friend who went and stayed in a neighborhood where her daughter lived, and it was wonderful for them all to get together, go to check out the local tourist sites. I don't think you can vet every guest that comes into an Airbnb, but when you have multiple rooms and multiple people in a small neighborhood such as ours, as Cliff May homes that are 1950, we barely fit. My husband and I and our 3 dogs barely fit into our home. So I can't imagine renting all of these rooms individually and having multiple people, especially like today with street sweeping day. I don't know where all the cars can fit. Everybody's out there in a little line, like a little, you know, parade, trying to move their cars just to make sure we have the street sweeper do what they got to do. So that's my concern. I just hope that there can be some kind of regulations to make sure that, you know, it can stick to be a family event, you know. Anyways, that's all I had to say. Thank you so much for all you do. I love Vista.
Thank you very much. Jason Pilas, followed by Mo, followed by Emily Vaccaro.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jacek Pilas. Thank you for not butchering it.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. So I've been here in States about 10 years. I moved to Vista in 2017. And I can't really call myself a business owner, but I've been enforced by Airbnb or indicated that I have to register my business as like part of the Airbnb requirement. So we own a house. I'm a father of I got 3 kids and wife staying home. My kids actually make more noise than my guests. So I can't really help them stay quiet. But what I wanted to say, you cannot really put everyone in the same bucket, Like the way we kind of do the Airbnb is we select the people that we're accepting for the reservations. We look at their reviews. And I'll be completely honest with you. The reason we do that is because it's just tough. My wife stays home. We just make a couple dollars a month, here and there. I'm not looking to have people staying for 30 days in a month, and make so much money out of it. But I think we cannot just put everyone in the same bucket, And if I had a choice, I would not do that, The only reason I'm doing it, like I said, I'm providing for the family of 5, and I just need that extra income. And, in December, I found out, here we go, I'm the city of Vista, you got to pay 10% out of your income, I don't really think that's fair. And, some of those short-term rentals should not be put in the same bucket where you do, management companies. And, I don't think it's really fair. So if I were to give you an opportunity to be a, cleaning lady, a maintenance technician, and dealing with all those people, that are not always the nicest people, We haven't had many problems, but how you use the espresso machine, or this espresso machine is not as good as this espresso machine, and in the middle of the night you got to find a different espresso machine, or some other whatever. That's not really fun, but I think that 10% on top of those couple dollars that we make on site, just because we don't use those 2 rooms, we're going to use them in the future, right? But like I said, you can't really put all the rentals in the same bucket. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mo, followed by Emily Vaccaro.
Good evening. My name is Mo Rashid. I am the owner of Sky Management. We have 4 short-term vacation rentals here in Vista. Some of those owners are travel nurses. Some of them are in the military. Some of them are just investors. And so for them, they're really just trying to supplement their income or supplement some additional income while they travel or they're overseas in the military. The first thing I can say is I echo a lot of what Kimberly said today. I think you guys need to take that to heart. I appreciate this conversation. I think it's very important that we have sensible regulation. I think it's really important that we come to the table, the people that are for and against it, and figure out real reform. But the question is that a lot of what I've heard today was make it simple, right? Don't put too much into place. But for you guys, what you guys have to understand, I think, is the biggest thing is making something that is easy, that's not going to require so many man hours on your part to enforce, right? There's a lot of cities like Chula Vista that say, hey, we're going to do all this, and none of it's enforced. So there has to be a balance. And I do apologize for the people here in the room that have really bad experiences, and I think that's really unfortunate. And it's because we don't have great regulation, right? Noise is an issue. If we don't manage that, I'm a great property manager, I have a great business, and we have really strict neighborhood rules, and I think that's really important. Trash is another one, and then parking is another issue, and it's a lot of what these people said that are a problem, and not getting hold of a property manager or an owner is, I just feel this guy's pain, right? So we should have something where the permit process is available with somebody's number, and it's that 24-hour available service where they can get contacted. Somebody in the city can get contacted. There's three violations, they should be evicted, right? Because I think the overwhelming thing I heard here today was that we do need regulation and we do need to have a conversation. And I think we need to come together as a community and figure out what are the pain points. This is just the beginning. So I think there's still a lot of work that you need to do with the community to figure out what those pain points are, address them, and I'd love to be a part of that. And I know Kimberly and everybody else here would as well. So I strongly recommend that you guys put together a council that we can really talk through a lot of these issues and make sensible, easy reform that we can actually follow through as a city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last public speaker is Emily Vaccaro.
Thank you so much for this discussion. I think it's really important. My name is Emily Vaccaro, and I own a short-term rental here in Vista. My husband and I wanted to own here because we have family nearby. Hi, Mom. And we rented a short-term rental while visiting my family during COVID here. We fell in love with the town, the weather, the people. It's truly a gem. When we purchased our home here and we knew we were transitioning to short-term rental in order to be able to afford to come and stay in our house during vacation, we alerted our immediate neighbors, and they had our contact information and they were aware of what we were doing. We operate our STR legally here in Vista, as far as we know. I mean, with the regulations that are in place. We pay our transient occupancy tax, the same as every STR should, in my opinion, and every hotel does. To give you an idea of the money we contribute to the city of Vista for our one small short-term rental, we plan to pay over $6,000 in 2023. This is money that goes to improving the city of Vista. Most of our guests who rent our STR are not familiar with Vista, so guess who gets to tell them about all the restaurants and stores and shops and places to visit? That's me. It's a really great gateway to the businesses here. I've guided people to Miko's for sushi and Shacks for Great Mediterranean and lots more. If you want more traffic in your businesses, I think you should connect with STR owners to promote your business. I do believe that regulations should be in place. And on my speaker thing, I put I was opposed. I was misled, and I am not opposed to regulations, so I apologize for that mistake. I do believe that regulations should be in place to protect the owners, the guests, and the neighbors. I also believe that short-term rental owners that are currently running legal and safe businesses here in Vista should be grandfathered into operating. Short-term rentals are a great way for vacationers to see our beautiful town, to be patrons of our stores and restaurants. It would be in the best interest of the city council to continue allowing short-term rentals to keep that business flowing. And I think the one piece that I think is incredibly important for a vacation rental like mine is that there is not a minimum number of days in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I really want to thank the public for coming forward and Councilmember Melendez for putting this on the agenda. What I heard over and over was a resounding, yes, there should be some simple regulation, specifically for those who already are doing their part. That they want to have an even playing field. I mean, that's basics of business, right? Is that it's unfair if there's unwritten rules, and some folks are taking the initiative to be really, really good short-term rental vacation owners, and others are maybe not stepping up to the plate. So I kind of like that idea of grandfathering in. I definitely need to hear from the rest of my council, but maybe it's something, that for those who already have permits, it wouldn't be that if any regulations that we come up with that you wouldn't have to apply for those, but maybe it's something like, we get to waive your fees, kind of what we did with the skate ramp situation. because I think there should be some reward for being a good steward and a good corporate citizen. I'm all for that. So again, thank you so much. I mean, it's been really great listening to your comments. I didn't tally how many public speakers we had, but it was quite a lot. And I think that's also an illustration that the 3 minutes is a good amount of time to give folks to provide their testimony, because I know maybe some of you could have maybe even had a little 30 seconds more, but that 3 minutes that really allowed you to illustrate to the council your thoughts as a subject matter expert in many cases, whether that's an expert of someone that is a great property owner, or a testimonial from an expert that is a neighbor that maybe hasn't had the best experience. So I really appreciate all your comments. I am 100% in favor of putting some regulation. I definitely am in favor of making a simple process for folks to be permitted into this type of business. So going back to Councilmember Melendez and the presentation that you put forward, I would be interested in perhaps getting some more information from staff about a restriction on the total amount of STRs, and also the type of dwelling unit. Maybe it's, single family home and condo. I would be in favor of discussing more limitations based on secondary use of property. Perhaps, not saying that every single short-term rental would have to be owner-occupied, but if there's multiple that, maybe an owner, an investor can only be capped at a certain amount within the boundaries of the city if they are not occupying that. Let's see here. I wrote down the respectful of zoning in residential neighborhoods. I think that's really important because we have, zoning for a reason. So we want to ensure that there's not a short-term rental that is just party city, right? That's never a great situation for folks, especially folks that, you got to wake up really early in the morning, and if you lose an hour of sleep, that's it. That could be significant and detrimental to your health. So all for reasonable regulations, consistent and regular regulations that have that type of conformity. Noise, right? Something to the effect of parameters on noise. I think that there could also be a discussion on after hours for code enforcement, utilizing some of the TOT that we receive from short-term rentals. Let's see here. I don't know about, not having a minimum, but I'm not like super a stickler on that one. I think if we did have a minimum, 2 nights would be something that we could discuss, but that's not something that's going to make or break my yes or no to support regulation. Let's see here. Definitely having no limit on the length of duration. I'm in favor of if you want to be in Vista for 3 months, like that's great. Someone brought up no smoking, that is something that they already have. Is that something that we're able to put as a stipulation? Or do we have to amend our municipal code to allow for that in residential areas?
So we'll have to look into it, but we're talking about private residences, so regulating inside private residences is going to be harder. So, but we'll take a look at that. But right off the top of my head, I'd say probably not.
Okay, yeah, if we could take a look at that, and then if there is a way, as we're talking about tobacco and the harms of tobacco, perhaps that's something that, because if it's utilized as a business during the times that it's utilized as a business, maybe that there's no smoking. Bringing up trash, that's important because people need to be responsible to be able to get the trash out to the curb so that EDCO can do their thing. I like the suggestion of a 24-hour available service to contact the owner or property management. I think that's a basic requirement. And yeah, the last thing that I have to say is I took down the note of being in favor. A lot of these individuals that have this type of business already in our city are in favor of regulations to protect the guests and the owners. And that's something that I really think is critical to the well-being of our city. We want to ensure that people's property rights are respected, but also that neighborhoods are respected. And that there's not, a situation where someone has an unpermitted short-term rental and they're just driving the neighborhood crazy. And then Councilmember Melendez brought up, one of the points is to reduce calls for service, which I think is an incredible point to make, and I have to echo that because at the end of the day, we only have so many services, whether it's code enforcement or law enforcement, and we want to ensure that those services are being are appropriately meeting the needs of the community. I think regulation's a great way to have conformity, uniformity, and to ensure that our calls for service maybe are maintained within a reasonable amount. So that is my contribution. And are you all just looking for a direction at this point?
Yes, we're just seeking direction from the council, and whatever we get from you tonight, we'll bring back in a discussion format that staff does research on, and we'll present back.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you to everybody that spoke this evening, all the people that I know emailed, all of the council members. I think some of you actually came here to speak tonight as well. I did want to ask, I know we talked about it briefly, but how many registered STRs do we currently have in the city of Vista?
We have 22 based on our records.
Do we know how much we collect in taxes from those 22?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm looking at our finance director. I don't think we have that, but we can bring it back at the discussion.
Could we please? And because when I looked on Airbnb, there's actually over 900 units available for rental on Airbnb here in our city limits. And there actually might be more. I kept it to a certain parameter. So there could be a lot of units out there that we're not collecting the TOT on. I think it's really important because there are good people here that are doing it correctly, paying their taxes, giving back to our community, trying to invest. And I think it'd just be important to make sure we look into that. I am definitely for more rules and regulations, though. My friends and I rented a home. There was about 15 of us. The rules were very strict, and it was no loud music after 9:30. You can only have a certain amount of people that were there. If you violated those rules, you were immediately removed from the premises, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I am all for making sure that those regulations are put in place. And I know it's up to the owner of the Airbnb to set those restrictions in place, but just to make sure that we're adhering to those and being respectful of our neighbors, I think is also just as important as it is to take care of the people that are trying to operate Airbnb or whatever platform you decide to use. I want to be careful not to go down too deep of a rabbit hole, though. I know that when we spoke about our bars and loud music, we use decibel readers. I don't even think it'd be legal for us to require those. But I don't know if that would be something on the outside for a lot of the neighbors that have continuous complaints to make sure that we're monitoring it, if that would be something that would even be possible. And I guess that would be a later discussion with our city attorney. I'm all for the 3 violations and you lose your ability to rent. As Deputy Mayor brought up, the type of dwelling I think is important, and that's because there are communities that have compounds. You might have 4 or 5 units on one compound, so if we're going to limit the number of units that you're allowed to rent out, I think it's important that we don't just single out all of them or put it under one blanket, because there are various different types of dwellings you might have. As far as the no smoking, I mean, if the residence is going to operate as a business, I don't see why that would be an issue to have an overlay on that. What I would want to be careful about, though, is that there are people that operate other businesses, such as, CPAs or whatever else, out of their home. And if they want to smoke in their home while they're doing people's taxes, that's whatever. That's for them to do. I also am, I don't want to, listen, I love Vista. That's why my wife and I bought our first home here. I know all the great things that people have said about Vista. I would be concerned about not having a cap on how many properties one can own and rent out. I don't know if there's a percentage that we can put on that, maybe 1% of the total population, or I'm sorry, of total housing market available, or greater discussion by the council to kind of go over that. But I don't want to run into a situation where like San Diego did, where 30% or 40% of their market was taken up, and they had all these investors coming in just scooping up homes, and then there were none available for people to purchase. I think that would be something that would be very detrimental to Vista in general if we didn't put some limitation on it. So I was trying to see if I wrote anything else down. I think that's it, but I like the discussion so far, and I really do want to thank everybody for being here this evening and look forward to future discussion.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank everybody for speaking. I love having subject matter experts. Our council loves workshops, and I would almost say that, like, if we had a workshop with you subject matter experts, that would probably be really beneficial to us, especially the ones who don't like and do like get you all in the same room and try to get regulations that meet everybody's needs. Might not make everybody happy, but it'd give us more information. But as far as what was spoken about here tonight, I wrote down some really good stuff. Number one, a permit process has to be done. The fact that you said 19 were registered, I guess 22, and there's at least 100. Councilmember O'Donnell said he saw 900 units. Just to give you an idea, and I love math, so I do numbers fast. Somebody said they're writing a check for $6,000 for the year. This is a little unit, right? If just 200 units paid $6,000 per year, that's $1.2 million. And if we could issue 200 units permits and get $1.2 million, that's a great stream of revenue. And we talk about the type of enforcement that we need and, the type of resources that we need for our city and infrastructure improvements, and getting residual income of $1.2 million, infused into our budget would be something that's really good. So not only do I appreciate you guys being here as, good business owners, but saying, hey, we like paying you. We want people to, not that you like it, but we understand the need, right? And you want other people to be good players just as you are. I think everybody that gets one of these permits, whether they're new or old, definitely needs to, abide by our new regulations. I like the idea of a noise ordinance, and that was a question I had as well. I don't think it oversteps our boundaries. If we're allowing a business to obtain a permit for a residential Airbnb, is it possible to say, hey, business, outside your front left-hand corner, we want a decibel meter, and in the event we get noise complaints, we want to be able to check the decibel meter, and if it exceeds our municipal ordinance of noise, that's a strike or something, or they have to enforce against the occupant, because I really don't think there's any other way to enforce noise than to have a decibel requirement. I know we have it on our bars and businesses, and I know that we're talking about a residential neighborhood, which is why I'm anti the smoking ban. I think that's going to be tough, but I feel like the noise ordinance is more of a quality of life issue, because that really affects everybody surrounded. And if you're going to have parties after 10 o'clock at night, after having a restriction to not, if we had something like that. So city attorney, look at that, see if there's any type of noise regulations or decibel meters. And a decibel, it's decibel readers, couple few $100. We found some pretty cheap ones. And if it was something that we could do to make sure that the quality of life of the neighbors, I have 4 kids, a grandkid, 4 dogs, and even my dogs are out barking. I put them inside the crate because I don't like them barking when my neighbors are in the backyard. And in an Airbnb situation, you don't have that same consideration. You don't have a neighbor that's got to see you tomorrow. So I really think the noise is a big thing, and it seems to be the source of a lot of complaints. Also, parking. I'm wondering if we are going to allow a 12-unit, Airbnb, does there have to be ample parking, or is there any type of parking? So in the permitting process, I would say we want to have some type of parking requirements as far as however many units, 1 spot per unit. 3 strikes and you're out is good, like that. And provide documentation auditing stays. There was a gentleman that said he brought his documentation in saying that he had him stay for a couple months and this is how many days Airbnb rented and this is what I'm paying. I actually know Airbnb gives you a printout of, hey, these are your days, this is your stays, these were your expenses, and this is your net income per se. Knowing that there's an easily audited documentation, if the good players like that, I mean, I don't do too many overlays, but you can literally bring in the sheet that says, I rented my house out for 232 days this year, this was my gross scheduled income, this is your 10% TOT. And that would make sure that the revenue stream was real. That's why we audit taxes, to make sure. So maybe an annual, audit, biannual audit, people who are been doing it for a long time, just something to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. I'm okay with a 2-night minimum. If it is going to impede business owners' ability to run their Airbnbs, please let us know when we bring this back. But I really feel like if we have people coming for a couple nights, it's more of a vacation thing. Typically when I leave with my wife and my kids, I'm gonna go Friday, Saturday, I'm coming home on Sunday. Or I might go Saturday, Sunday, and come home on Monday to try to not have all that Sunday traffic, which we all know about. So I like a 2-night minimum stay. I feel like that person's gonna be more vested in the community they're staying in, knowing that when they wake up tomorrow, they gotta walk out that front door and possibly see that neighbor that you threw a beer bottle over the fence or whatever. Lord willing, that doesn't happen. But I definitely think that a 2-night stay helps with the quality of tenant. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the owner-occupied rentals. We have a gentleman here that has a unit that he rents out very rarely. It sounds like it's not rented out every night per se, but it's just to kind of supplement his income for a portion. If we have owner-occupied rentals, and this is something I want to talk about when it comes back for discussion, a lot of the Airbnbs we're talking about are corporations, Airbnbs by Kimberly, all this. When we have somebody who has a 3-bedroom house and they're renting out a couple rooms throughout the year to kind of, do things, those regulations on the owner-occupied units, I feel like should be different than the regulations on non-owner-occupied, such as decibel readers and smoking, okay? If you own your house and you're a smoker and you're renting out rooms, you don't have to stop smoking in your house because you own your house, okay? And if you're in a couple rooms, smoke in your room if you want. I'm not gonna make you not smoke in your home. So owner-occupied Airbnbs, in my opinion, should be handled differently from that aspect. If it's being operated as a non-owner-occupied business, well then yeah, I wouldn't want somebody smoking in my Airbnb. It ruins the walls and the smell and make that, most Airbnbs say no smoking anyway, so putting a city ordinance overlay on that that's not an owner-occupied, I think would be more acceptable. And noticing neighbors within 500 feet. Hey, you got a new Airbnb, just applied for a permit. So maybe before we issue the permit, there's like a 2-week grace period where we say, okay, you've applied for the permit, we're gonna notice your neighbors. If there's no outrage, your permit will be issued in 21 days or 14 business days, or as you know, business days are longer than real days, so you could give them business days and that will help. So I think that would make a difference so there's no surprise Airbnb right next to your home. And let's see, how much does Airbnb write us our check directly or does it come from residents? Okay, thank you. And the only other thing is somebody said, hey, we need to make sure that our regulations for Airbnb are the same as hotels. I don't agree with that because hotels are in commercial zones and Airbnbs are typically in residential areas. So when it comes to guidelines that I have in commercial areas as opposed to guidelines I have in residential, it's gonna be a little different simply because of parking requirements, street sweeping, neighbors, people affected, noise pollution, light pollution, all that stuff. It's a lot different in a residential neighborhood because you're fence to fence with somebody. So I don't advise keeping those same guidelines as on hotels. And let's see, one-time pay, trash and parking. That's it. Several ideas. I feel like super educated by the experts that are in the field here. And I think that we could probably come up with something really good. And thank you, Councilmember Melendez, for bringing this forward. There are holes in every municipality that has been established since the early 1900s. And as we look at our codes and look at problems that come forward, it's great to have council members that have their finger on the pulse and are saying, hey, let's throw this out there and see what we can do for the community and for the city. And in the end, this could generate $1.2 million, which could be a great revenue stream for the city. That's money. I like it. Thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you again for bringing this forward. Thanks for speaking.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and thank you for everyone in the public who spoke. I know that this is the first time we're having this conversation, but I'm actually feeling so positive that our responsible business owners are wanting to partner with residents in creating a solution that's going to work for everyone. And I will agree with Councilmember Green. There was a statement that said that we should only ask of short-term rentals what we ask of hotels. And the reason why I'm bringing this forward in the first place is because these are businesses that are operating within a residential zone. So by nature, you're not the same as a hotel. And some of the requirements for operation might look a little bit different. But I hope that the changes that come are going to be based on the feedback that we received. So rest assured, this will be coming back to us. I encourage our city staff not to just take our recommendations, but try to peel away the layers of what we heard from the public tonight. Some of y'all were talking really fast, and I was trying to write everything down, and there were a lot of good ideas, but I couldn't write everything down, and I think our city staff will be able to capture a lot of those concerns and bring forth a package and put together a puzzle for us that's really gonna be a good fit for Vista. Some really good takes that I appreciated: responsiveness from the owner. I think that that is essential. I'm not sure if it's something that can be put into the permit of like a 24-hour contact line. 3 strikes and you're out. I think that that is going to be huge for the neighbors that have had ongoing concerns, rather than, especially right now, it's a little bit quieter in terms of vacation rentals. Once we get into the summertime, there's a lot more activity, and a lot of folks are nervous, right? That, okay, like this business is going to be operating next to my home, and I still have to wake up in the morning to go to work, but I have some folks vacationing next to me, and I hope they quiet down at a certain point, right? So just knowing that with the rules that will be established, that there will be 3 strikes and you're out, or some sort of limit to the amount of allowances that we have before their permit is revoked. I also appreciate the comments that a lack of regulations in general are unfair to those who are paying license fees and taxes and following rules. And I really do want to create a more even playing field. And I really love the comment about connecting the city, connecting with short-term rentals to promote local businesses, right? Regulating our rental business doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could really be an opportunity for us to have a point of contact with people who are, bringing vacationers into our city and find ways to promote local events and local businesses, right? We just talked earlier about some events that are going to be happening downtown in the summertime, and we want the hosts of short-term rentals to know about these events so that they can encourage their guests to really enjoy our city and highlight those good things that are happening. I would be curious too about noise monitoring. How do we enforce noise requirements, right? That's the question that I have, and I think some sort of noise monitor is going to be essential for that. I'm okay with a minimum stay. I've heard from other short-term rental owners that a minimum stay they have noticed drastically reduces the amount of party activity. And again, because this is a short-term rental in a residential neighborhood and not a hotel or a motel, I think it's fair to expect that the requirements are going to look different. I appreciate the comments that owner-occupied short-term rentals should have different operation requirements and enforcement than those that are non-owner occupied, because there's enforcement built in. You're there all the time. So I would say that I'm just curious about how we're going to enforce challenges with large amenities. I know that there was a comment from one of the neighbors about people jumping off the roof into the big pool. So there's, safety issues, there's nuisance issues. And I would say that if there is a short-term rental that is owner-occupied, I think that we can expect a different level of enforcement. So I'm not exactly sure how that looks, but there's something there. Noise, minimum stay. Okay, so do you feel like you have good direction? All good? Okay, thank you, everybody, for this great conversation, and I'll leave it at that.
I just want to add the thought that maybe we want to at least consider homeowners that are very infrequent. Maybe we want to treat them differently somehow. I don't know what exactly that would be, whether it's non-licensure for, say, you rent your house less than 4 days a year. Maybe there's some threshold beyond which this applies to you. I don't have a thought on that, but maybe we want to ask staff to consider that so that individuals, if I was doing the math along with Joe, and I'm thinking if there's 900 people on there, how many of them have enjoyed more than X number of nights of stay, and what kind of burden do we want to put on people? And perhaps there's a benefit to letting people get started and then with some very small amount, and maybe they develop some success with it, and then they wind up becoming TOT paying businesses. So just a thought there. Councilmember Melendez.
I would actually agree with that, Mr. Mayor, when Councilmember Green brought up the comments about owner-occupied short-term rentals that only operate very rarely. That was one of the things in my mind that was triggered of, some folks rarely rent out their room that's available. So maybe there's some sort of sliding scale, right, or recognition of that reality for folks there too.
Councilmember Green.
Yeah, I love that, actually. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, as well as the gentleman who said, I don't rent my house out 365 nights a year. I just rent it out every once in a while to make a little bit of money. And for me, I mean, if it's, hey, you rent your house out less than 3 weeks out of the year, 21 days of occupancy, you're not required to pay a 10% TOT tax. I mean, if that's $1,600 you made or $2,000 you made, do you really need to give the city $200 for the $2,000 you made on the 20 nights you rented your property out? Whatever you guys think the threshold would be. I mean, I want to maybe glean from other cities that maybe have that, because again, if it's going to be more expensive to pay for the permit, say our permit's $150, $200. I mean, it doesn't make sense for them financially. So I think that's really where we need to see is, hey, in order for you to need to get a permit, you need to be generating a certain amount of TOT, because, if you're only generating $150 and we charge you $200 for a permit, might not make sense from a, standpoint like that. So I'd like you to figure that out and maybe see what other cities have, because there's got to be something from an owner-occupied standpoint. And just to get a little extra money for the 3 kids, man, you got a little place to rent out, man. I don't want to take your money if you're not renting it out a whole lot personally. That's just to me. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
I won't take too much more time, but I do just want to reinforce that I would support a process that is simple, right? I've heard from folks in the public, Solana Beach might be a great community to look at as far as a simple process. So definitely want to reinforce, keep it simple.
Okay, and I think we all want to thank everybody again that came to speak tonight. We look forward to seeing your comments as we develop a policy. That'll bring us to item number D3, our final discussion item, our second quarter financial report. And Finance Director Mike Sylvia will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item D3 is our
If I could ask everybody in the rear of the chamber to remove their conversations to the lobby, please. Please, if you could remove your conversations to the lobby. If you could please move outside the chambers with your conversations. I know, that was the first time. Thanks, Mr. Sylvia.
Okay, my pleasure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item D3 is our fiscal year 22-23 second quarter financial report. Provides a comparison of budget to actual performance for our general fund as of the second quarter. And consistent with direction Council had provided last year, staff did additional analysis for additional revenue estimates, and indeed it proved out to provide an extra $3.3 million. Staff has recommendations for appropriation for a portion of those additions. And in terms of specific metrics, the general fund received about 47.5% of budgeted revenues, which nominal figures is 49.7 million. In terms of expenditures, expended 34.4%, which is in nominal numbers 42.6. Those percentages seem a little bit skewed, but part of that includes the encumbrances that are carried forward from the prior year, which inflates the expenditure budget. Turning to that additional revenue, it's built by 6 sources. 1.9 million is property taxes, specifically VLF property tax in lieu, and also redevelopment property tax trust fund figures. Just over $500,000 in sales and use tax, $377,000 in Prop L, $228,000 in TOT, and I'd add on that last item, I queued staff, and it was about $55,000 that's currently generated from the short-term rentals that are currently reporting. And then the 6th item is $250,000 in additional business license revenue. Again, that total is 3.3. Staff recommends allocating a portion of those additional revenues to 12 budget adjustments, and that is represented mainly by $390,000 transfer to Prop L reserves, consistent with direction of the half-cent sales tax. $204,000 in playground resurfacing project. The bids came in a bit higher, plus there was a couple other park sites that were going to be included. $93,000 in Civic Center electricity costs. The rates have gone up, as well as some challenges that our facility staff had with regard to keeping the facilities cool here at Civic Center last August and September, the hottest part of the year. The total of those requests is just over 1.3 million. There are 8 other budget adjustments requested. Notable among them are $150,000 in Public Works fleet building improvement. That's coming from the fleet fund, and it's made up of $100,000 to design the office space that's needed there for staff, as well as $50,000 for automated doors, which staff believes will help prevent, certainly make the functioning of the facility be better, but also prevent potential injuries among staff. Also, $75,000 for the cannabis equity grant, and that's both a revenue and expenditure. And the same holds true for the $26,000 justice assistance grant, also in the general fund. All of the 20 recommended budget adjustments are explained in detail in Exhibit 2 on pages 9 through 12 of the agenda report. In addition to the requested budget adjustments, there are 2 personnel-related items. The 2 changes will split the Community Development and Engineering Director position into 2 director positions, one being the Community Development Director and one being the Engineering Director. Current Deputy Director City Planner will serve as the Acting Community Development Director, and the current City Engineer will serve as the Acting Engineering Director while the recruitments are conducted and until the new directors have been identified. Side note, before I get to the recommendation, I'd be remiss as the city's fiscal fiduciary to not highlight the fact that the second largest bank failure happened in U.S. history last Friday. I am happy to report the city's pool portfolio, that's usually in the neighborhood of $300 million, did not have exposure to that failure. So in summary, the recommendation for the item is to receive and file the fiscal year 22-23 second quarter financial report and adopt 2 resolutions. One for the city, amending the operating budgets for fiscal 21 and 22, and 22 and 23, and the capital project budget for fiscal 22-23 and 23-24. The second resolution to authorize amendment to the citywide classification and compensation index and repealing the provisions of any resolution in conflict herewith. And with that concludes my report, and staff's available for questions.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
$93,000 for electricity? I already know the answer to my question. I just want the public to know. We are all excited about the solar project that we have coming here to this building to try and offset these costs. That is an extreme amount. I know that energy costs have impacted residents as well as our city. Do we have an update on when that solar project will be fitted to this building to try and save those funds?
I don't have an estimate on the start date of that project.
We currently have a consultant who is putting together a design, and I will have to find out about timing. I think they're still in the design process, so we're hoping definitely before the end of the year. I don't have an exact date yet.
Awesome. Thank you. That was all I had.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Thank you so much for the report. I do want to say that there was a change to this agenda report, and it's not easy to see what the change was, but it was on personnel, and it was the reclassification to 2 council aides, and that has been removed from the agenda. However, for the public record, I think it's incredibly important that there is a trail of revision, so I would recommend that get put either in the minutes and/or both in the minutes, and that there is an uploaded revised agenda report versus the original one, because right now it's very difficult to see what that change was. I just think it has been a practice that I really have enjoyed, where when there is a revision of the agenda, that it says revised. So I just wanted to point that out. And the other thing, I just want to restate that we should have bilingual interpretation for Spanish speakers at every single council meeting, whether that is a meeting, a special workshop, or a special meeting, whatever the configuration might be, that we have interpretation available, and that as we grow the ability for the public to comment utilizing a virtual public comment platform, that also have the ability for interpretation for Spanish speakers. I don't know where in the budget we're going to find that. That's probably something that we can continue to discuss as a council, but I just wanted to bring it up yet again. Thank you so much. That's all for me.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mike, Mr. Sylvia, for this report. Greatly appreciate it. When I'm looking at the 2-year Treasury note yield, which is very important to a lot of Americans due to the interest rates increase and trying to kind of curb inflation, I see that inflation was at 5.3% still in December 2022, which means with all those interest rate increases, it still didn't get inflation where they wanted. I know in February you stated that the Feds raised the rates again to 4.5 to 4.75. And it's looking like they might put it at a terminal range of 5.5 to 5.75, with some even forecasting 6%. I love that you put all that in there. As far as the benefit to us as a city, our funds are tied to that 2-year Treasury in some effect?
They're not tied directly to the 2-year Treasury, but it's a good proxy for a snapshot within the economic highlights.
Gotcha.
I mean, staff could certainly transition to the 3-year Treasury because we do utilize the 1 to 5 year Bank of America Merrill Lynch Treasury as our benchmark. And obviously we augment, unlike the Silicon Valley Bank, we augment our investments and things other
Appreciate
than
that.
treasuries.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, shameless plug.
It's all good. You're fantastic, City of Vista Finance Department.
But it provides kind of a thumbnail sketch of where rates are at. And as I explained last week at the the long-term financial plan and the budget workshop, the deputy mayor certainly brought up the point about an opportunity cost, but there are plenty of other times, and I do have a request into our consultant to take a look at that. But I would also say there's plenty of other times, especially since the zero interest rate policy began at the tail end of the Great Recession, where inflation with whatever measure, whether it's PCE or CPI, was well below some of the yields on a variety of the city's investments. So that pendulum can certainly swing both ways.
Would it be safe to say, looking at these projections, I mean, even just looking from March of 2022 to where we're at now, March of 2023, and you don't obviously have that on this yield here, but I know where it's at. Would it be safe to say that we're going to be projecting some additional earnings from our portfolio over the next year based off of what we budgeted previously? Because I mean, previously we weren't getting anything. Everything was real low. And now we're about 400% above to 500% above where it was previously performing. I'm not saying we're going to have that much additional investment income, but will there be some type of surplus that perhaps could be used for some of the stuff we talk about up here at the end of the year?
Sure, no, it's a great question. We work with PFM, our financial advisor, to true up those costs and make estimates as, you know, as you said, some of the investments we made during the worst of the pandemic, I mean, there was German bonds yielding negative rates.
Yes.
So I can tell you, there was one biweekly call we had with them where our trader actually made a trade for 43 basis points, which right now just seems like nothing, but at the time we were doing handstands.
You're like, yes.
But looking at it now, it's obviously a loss leader on the portfolio
Yes.
because we've got sufficient liquidity. It's an unrealized loss. We'll let that run to maturity, reinvest it at the higher rates, and certainly to your point, we'll have a higher yield going forward, or at least so it seems right now, because I wrote that paragraph before I knew that we were going to have
Before you knew the bank was going to do
the
the
failure in
Yeah.
U.S. history. So
No,
we'll see
I-
if we see 6%.
No, I got you. And I think it's great too, you know, I mean, obviously to get the economy stimulated, to get people back into buying houses after the, you know, Great Recession, it was good, but definitely with the rate of inflation and even seeing us have to catch up with it as an elected official body, you know, with our employees and saying, hey, we're not giving you what the cost of living was and you're literally losing purchasing power because of what we're paying based off the rate of inflation. So it's good to see that, hey, the changes we're making, you know, for employees and stuff like that, it's because we've been really good fiscally and put ourselves in such a position that, you know, we can do it. And Vista ain't going anywhere anytime soon, man. We like it. We got a great portfolio, got a good amount of assets, and I really think that we've been very responsible with them. And I thank past councils, future councils, and also current councils for everything you do to keep our great city up and running, man. It's a good thing. So with that, I would basically say that we want to accept staff's recommendations and adopt the 2 resolutions as presented. And one other thing I would like to say before moving on is Imelda Huerta, thank you so much for translating tonight. And in the event there is not a line item or a fund for whatever for a translator at this point, even a bonus for bilingual translation from our director when she translate would be acceptable to me, because I felt like Imelda was a fantastic translator. I felt like she gave the citizens time to speak. And in the event we don't want to pay, you know, I don't know how much the guy with the great voice charges to be here to translate, but Imelda is already an amazing employee of ours. And in the event she has to translate, there could be some type of compensation to her. And then we don't feel bad as council people saying, hey, Imelda, can you do it? She knows she's on call in the event we need her. She'll be here for us type deal. So I just wanted to throw that out there until we figure it out, that I appreciate you. I thank you for being here. And, you know, this council also put in some bilingual pay for some of our other employees, you know, a year ago or so starting. So we're really trying to be cognizant of who our citizens are who come in here and real welcoming and just let them know. So that'd be my suggestion for now. And anytime I can prop up Miss Imelda Huerta, I have to. She's always smiling in that back row, even after 11 o'clock at night. So thank you so much for your work, ma'am. And thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
You know, I don't think that's a bad idea. I think our city manager might have some thoughts about it, but you know, I was thinking if, you know, if there are employees of the city who are proficient and perhaps there's some kind of an interpreter certification or education credential that one of our employees or maybe one or more of our employees wanted to receive, maybe it's not our employees who are necessarily present here tonight, but maybe there's employees that would want to be eligible for some kind of credential and receive a stipend. And that could be a way that they could provide additional service, maybe earn some additional income, and provide an additional service to the city and be credentials to do it competently. I don't see why that, you know, it might be more efficient for us financially and be an opportunity for some of our staff. So just a thought there. Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you. I just to jump on this current conversation, I definitely support ensuring that there's translation available for those folks who walk into the meeting, right? I don't want anyone to be restricted in their ability to participate. And one of the things I'm just recognizing now that some of the folks probably experienced is that they may have been able to provide their comments, but they weren't able to really hear what we were talking about because they weren't receiving the other side of that translation. So I would definitely be supportive of equipping staff members with certifications or the proper, ability to conduct translation. I would just want to ensure that when we are providing translation, that it's going both ways, right? Because a lot of the folks who wanted translation tonight, they also wanted to be able to, they even said they were looking forward to good news, and they might not have been able to hear that. So I know that I have to constantly push myself to be better at being more inclusive. And when I know that folks are coming to the meeting that may need translation, I try to remind them, and I'll connect them on an email to the city clerk, and I'll let them know. So unfortunately, I didn't catch that tonight, and as many times as I possibly can, I will try to connect people to making that request for translation services. But sometimes people just learn about things last minute and they want to walk in and they might not even hear what we're talking about. But thank you, Imelda, so much for providing that translation. You did an amazing job. Cool. And so for this discussion about, I was looking at the list of recommended budget adjustments, and I really appreciate all the work that our finance department does to keep us afloat and run a tight ship. I was curious about number 4 with ticket writers. This is a technology update for our code enforcement officers, and there's some other technology updates listed in this schedule as well. And it's listed as $15,000. This is for 2 Android handheld phones. And how many code enforcement officers are using 2 devices? Or is this just for 2 devices?
That's a little more specific information than I have. I'd probably ask Imelda or Amanda to come down.
Okay. I think the brunt of my question is, do 2 Android handheld, why can't I say that tonight? Do 2 ticket writing devices cost $15,000, or is this for multiple code enforcement officers? If someone could answer that. Hi, Amanda.
No, it is for 2. It's for our parking enforcement officers. So it's those ticket writers that you see when people go by and do any type of ticket, street sweeping, whatnot. So they've historically keep being broken all the time. So then we have to go behind the seat sweeper and do handwritten, and that really clogs up the entire process. So having these new handheld ones, and it is for 2, and we generally only have 2 street sweeping officers at a time. So other people can use them, but we only need 2.
Okay, so these are more advanced technology than a
Yeah,
regular
it's not
cell
just an
phone?
Android.
Okay.
It's a machine that, when you go and you see the little guys in the little vehicles that go around, they have this device that you punch in the driver's, the plate number, and it spits out the ticket. And then they place it on there, and all that information also reads back into our system. So it's a very
Beautiful.
smart device. It's not just an Android.
Perfect. I mean, the way I read it, it was like $15,000 for 2 Android phones. I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of a lot. So I'm glad to know a little bit more about the technology. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, and the next item that I was looking at was number 16, that senior center events. It looks like we're going to get $8,500 from San Diego Senior Centers Foundation for some of our events, which is awesome. I just want to say that I really support this item and ask, have we received this funding before? Is this something that we regularly are able to receive from the San Diego Senior Centers Foundation?
I'm not aware whether or not we've received this funding in the past or not.
Okay, well, hopefully we can continue to get the support because I do support events at our senior center. And the last question I had was about the Wave Water Park Flow Rider supplies. Looks like we're going to be able to get some updates and allocate funding for our Flow Rider. And I know that last season, there were some challenges with our Wave Water Park. Some slides were shut down. And I just wanted to check with City Manager, where are we at with this upcoming season, right before we get into those summer months? Are we anticipating everything to be up and running at full capacity?
I believe Mike Pacheco can best answer that. He's been tracking the
Hi, Mike.
improvements going on at the Wave.
Pulling out everyone here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I thought Mike was going to bring up the water treadmills again, so Yeah, in regards to the Wave Tower project, we will be open this summer. The project right now, we're actually just going through punch lists to go through the tower construction that was delayed last summer. We don't need to redo a couple of the slides that are on there right now that we were hoping to have done by now. So if that project does not get complete as far as redoing the tower, redoing the slides components, we'll just wait till after the summer. So as of right now, we could open, but we're still just doing a couple other components to the water park. So we're excited, very excited to have that going. The topical component we're talking about right now is just for that flow rider part. We do that like before every summer before we open.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't follow. Will all the slides be open?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. All
Yeah.
right, well, thank you so much.
Thanks for checking.
And that was all my questions. Thank you so much.
Well, and on that last one, we'll cross our fingers for sunshine.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
Yeah, an end to these atmospheric rivers, right? I just wanted to, I know I said it before, but I just wanted to echo all the support for Imelda and the suggestions that we, in the case that, because we want to provide really good interpretation, right? So we want to ensure that that individual has whatever certifications are necessary. But just echoing what my colleagues have said, I think some really good ideas, and I appreciate everybody, talking about it, because, when almost half of our population speaks a language other than English, and that happens to be the bulk of it is Spanish, it's critical for our community to be able to participate and be able to hear, the good news that we had for them. So, so that's it for me. Thank you.
Are we already equipped with the equipment for the other side of translation, right? We have the earphones and everything.
Yes, we will be bringing a professional translator to future meetings.
Awesome. Well, I will be the fifth person to make full consensus on this. I really do appreciate Mayor Franklin's thoughts on a group of individuals that currently work for the city to be certified if they so choose, and maybe put them on a rotating schedule so nobody can say we're playing favorites. And just if they can make it, have a stipend or some type of bonus for them. But I think that'd be an excellent idea.
Councilmember Green.
I believe there's a motion on the floor. Do we need a second to my motion so that we can adopt the two resolutions that staff has provided?
Yes, we do. Does
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell want to second it?
I will second.
Okay. Seeing no other requests to speak, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is adopted unanimously, and we do have one speaker for oral communications this evening, which is Mary Davis, and we're proud to announce that in future meetings, you'll be able to speak at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you for being patient and waiting till the end.
Hi, yes, thank you. Mary Davis here, and this is my first time to your chamber, so hello to all of you. First, a nod and a thank to your clerk, Kathy Valdez, who was very helpful to me today in a couple of inquiries I made. She was very responsive, and I appreciate that. So I'm a local watchdog activist who monitors various governing bodies. I thought I'd pay you a visit tonight. I've also been monitoring Chula Vista City Council, but recently I learned of your Game of Thrones machinations to tip the scales at Sandag, and discovered that you also are a governing body that could use some oversight. Regarding Councilwoman Contreras and her decision to partake of the critical recent vote, how is this not an egregious conflict of interest? You actively work, and more important, you actively get paid for that work to advocate at a regional governing body in an attempt to exert influence for a specialized interest, or should I say, a corporation that doesn't make money. Then you come back to your home legislative body and essentially get to cast the tie-breaking vote as to who you will send to represent your home governing body at the regional governing body, the one you actively try to influence in a professional capacity. Your choice boiled down to either one, select someone who you know to be in diametric opposition to the paid work you do, Or 2, select an ally who you know supports the work you do. So now I want to share something from the Cornell School of Law Online Legal Information Institute. This is for their definition of recuse. Judges recuse themselves when they take no part in deciding a case that would otherwise help decide. The Due Process Clause of the United States Constitution requires judges to recuse themselves from cases in 2 situations. 1, where the judge has a financial interest in the case outcome. 2, where there is otherwise a strong possibility that the judge's decision will be biased. In either case, it does not matter whether or not the judge is actually biased. What matters is that even if the judge is not biased, the high probability of bias still damages the integrity of the judicial system. I would argue, so while the article focuses on the judiciary, I would also argue that it would certainly apply to elected officials as well, who should be held to the same high standard when it comes to ethics. Or as I like to say, what's good for the judiciary goose is most certainly good for the legislative gander. You should have recused yourself as a matter of ethics and integrity, and I encourage further follow-up and inquiry into that vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go to comments to conclude our meeting, and we'll begin with our Deputy Clerk, Claire Lopez. And our clerk, secretary, city attorney, city manager, welcome to the dais.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I have a couple of announcements. I want to recognize our Public Works crew and the city's contractor for the completion of the replacement of the artificial turf fields at the Vista Sports Park. The fields are reopened, as well as the trail at the park. The public's welcome to come check out all the fields and enjoy the amenities that the sports park offers. I'm happy to announce that not only are the seniors enjoying the new salad bar at the Senior Center, but they're also loving the Culture Caravan program. Culture Caravan is our excursion program that takes our seniors on one-day trips to many destinations in the region. Of the 9 excursions that were recently announced, all but 1 is currently sold out. You can find out more about this program at cityofvista.com/Culture Caravan. And lastly, outdoor entertainment is about to start up at the Moonlight Amphitheater, returning later this month. Our first outdoor concerts of the year start on March 31st with 2 weekends of shows, and you can get the lineup at moonlightstage.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember O'Donnell.
I will also give a shout out to Public Works. I went on a deputy ride along last week, and they were doing an amazing job keeping the city clean. So thank you. Thank you to all the staff tonight, especially with our tobacco initiative. That was amazing work done. So thank you so much for that, as well as the financial reporting. I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day this Friday on the 17th. That's why I'm wearing my green tie, to give a little shout out to my motherland. I want to remind everybody that I have a town hall on Sunday, March 19th at 12:30 to 2 p.m. at Thibodeau Park House. I hope everybody can make it. You're more than welcome. On March 8th, I did not make a post, which I typically do for International Women's Day, but I wanted to give a shout out to my wife, Allie. She is a tremendously brilliant woman who works extremely hard. She has been my rock and my light, and while pregnant, she has completed her doctorate EDD, and I don't think that she has had the appropriate time or place to be celebrated, so I just want to let her know how proud I am of her. All the women in my life who have worked so hard, and the women up here that work tremendously hard week in, week out, day in, day out, for all the work you do and the service you do for our city. And I want to thank everybody that was here this evening to speak, and for all the dialogue with my council members. And I hope you all have a great St. Patrick's Day, and I will look forward to golfing with Councilmember Green at the Operation Hope golf outing on Friday. So have a great night.
Councilmember Melendez.
Lovely. Happy St. Patty's Day. My favorite part of St. Patty's Day growing up was my Grandpa Claffey making really, really dry, yet really, really wet corned beef and cabbage. And it was the worst, but I loved it, and I love being part Irish. It's the best. I wanted to give a brief update about my appointment to SANDAG. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend the SANDAG board retreat, and I spoke with pretty much all of the members that were there. I tried to connect with as many fellow leaders as I could, and I connected with staff. And the program was awesome. I was really blown away by the opportunity we had for professional development and consensus building. So I was just very grateful for the opportunity and the experience to share my voice and let them know about Vista's concerns. The CEO did reference that at his opening remarks that fixing the 78, specifically the junction of the 5 and the 15, are specific priorities that he has, so I wanted to report that back. And there was a lot of dialogue and discussion amongst the board members that clearly indicated that North County needs more resources and advocacy. So it was really great to have a sense of unity with other board members from other cities and just kind of have this North County identity and be able to kind of add balance to the conversation. And even co-chair Sean Elo Rivera mentioned that his perspective changed about North County, that he typically kind of didn't recognize the disparities that occur in North County. So I think the dialogue was really productive. I also wanted to mention an update about the Emerald Corridor Improvement Project. This is an active transportation project that would improve Emerald Corridor by adding bike lanes and sidewalks, would reduce speed and congestion with the inclusion of traffic circles, would add intersection management. This project has not been recommended for funding by SANDAG staff. Yet again, this is going to be the 4th year that it is denied for funding based on staff's recommendation because we did not meet their criteria. But I will express that the criteria for active transportation funding is determined by the board and its committees. So one of the things that I believe is missing from the criteria is public input. SANDAG is a taxpayer-funded agency. It is essential that public input be a part of their rubric for determining how funds are allocated. So to fight for Emerald, I am encouraging all of my neighbors and whether you're a resident near Emerald Corridor, which many people have vocalized their support about improving Emerald Corridor, or if you're a resident of Vista that wants to see more accountability in SANDAG and you want to see more funding allocated to Vista, then please participate in the upcoming SANDAG Transportation Committee meeting this Friday, March 13th at 10:30 a.m. It is occurring both virtually and in person. And this is an opportunity for us to tell SANDAG that we need funding for the Emerald Corridor Improvement Project and that they need to reconsider their criteria as a taxpayer-funded agency to include public participation, public engagement, and comment. I will be carpooling down to San Diego with a group of folks, so we'll be coordinating that, but you can give your comments online. So again, that's going to be this Friday at 10:30 a.m. The SANDAG Transportation Committee will be meeting to discuss the recommendations for funding. And I encourage everyone to express their voice and their will. And I encourage that we will advocate for Emerald as hard as we can. So those are my updates, and thank you.
Deputy Mayor Contreras.
I too always want to thank my coworkers on staff for the incredible work that you do in service of our community and making it better. And I want to thank all the public. I want to thank Mary for coming and speaking. It's really important to have watchdog and advocacy. I'm still waiting to hear from the FPPC that this was a conflict of interest because it most certainly is not. So that's probably why I haven't heard. It's been quite some time. They're pretty quick about getting on these things. So, I know it was just a way to communicate to the public on KUSI and, have different things to say and make a lot about nothing. So, I certainly, in hearing the updates from Councilmember Melendez, I 100% know that I made the right decision. That's probably the most that anything has ever been articulated in regards to a representative attending a SANDAG meeting or retreat. And I really appreciate the hard work that she has put in. And hopefully a lot of folks can call into SANDAG because it is, as you stated, taxpayer funded. So, we definitely need to get our slice of the pie here in North County. So I appreciate the spirit of collaboration that you're bringing to that body. And there could be unison in North County to get more funding for these projects that we need. With that, I hope everybody has a really good night. And please, everybody, come. Don't let this be the first or last time that you come into these chambers. We want to continue to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I do want to congratulate Mr. John Conley, being our new city manager, staying up here, did a great job today. And I don't want to throw this out, but you got us out before 9 o'clock maybe, which could be the fastest meeting we've had in a very long time. So thank you so much. Sold out Culture Caravan at the Senior Center. Are you kidding me? They shut those down during COVID, and the seniors are so excited to get out, which is great. That sports park is up and running, so I know our Vista Storm soccer crews are going to be happy now because they haven't had a place to play or been lacking places to play. Luckily, the city of Vista was good and got them at Bringle Terrace to play when they needed as well. So we are looking out. One more big thing is we have these workshops coming up, and I have a workshop on March 20th, 6 p.m. at the Gloria McClellan Center. We're going to be having these general plan update workshops in all of the different districts throughout our city. And my workshop for my district is March 20th at 6 o'clock at the Gloria McClellan Center, right there at Pringle Terrace Park off Vale Terrace. So hope you will all join us. Anything you want to contribute to the city, or if you have any suggestions as to how we could be better planners, we'd love to have you there. Thank you so much for everything you guys did. Great discussion from my colleagues. Fantastic participation from the audience. And I'm going to get a taco by 9:30. Thank you, fam.
The city is beginning the process of updating its general plan amendment, as Councilmember Green just mentioned. We welcome the public's participation in this process. A series of workshops in each council district begins Monday. We have created an engagement website for this topic where the public can provide input and share ideas on the future development of Vista. The general plan includes goals and policies concerning land use, open space, conservation, housing, circulation, noise, and safety. The public can visit Vista 2050 or Vista2050.com to help guide the future of Vista and get information on next week's workshops. I just want to say I'm pretty excited about the salad bar at the Senior Center. I'm looking forward to trying that out. And I wanted to join Councilmember O'Donnell in saying a big thank you and recognizing all the women in our lives and in the world that are doing great things, including I would like to specifically mention my wife, Shauna, and my mother, and all the women that have helped make me what I am. So with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
You're asking about the 3-year-old? The 3-year-old? The missing 3-year-old? I wasn't asking. Somebody else was.
I don't know who else asked. No one asked me. I just